Chapter 726. Tang Tian was working while studying the stones. The stones were different from all the stones on the purple cuckoo city walls. They were agate-colored, extremely smooth and glossy, revealing a cloud pattern. For a long time it would be their home. The dust of time was slowly being polished away, and the beautiful cloud patterns slowly revealed themselves. The cloud patterns connected together as though they were alive, releasing a warm light aura. It was extremely beautiful. The black and stern mountain peak seemed to have become much brighter. A faint warmth was emitted, causing the coldness in the mountain to dissipate, causing everyone to feel an indescribable comfort. Everyone hurry up, in another hour the rainbow flow will be here. Tang Tian bellowed, hold on, it will be beneficial for you. But Mingzhu could not help but admire Ghost Face Mask for being able to work with everyone without any arrogance. In the Sin domain the hierarchy was extremely strict, and the difference between high and low was something that could not be crossed. No other patriarch would be like Ghost Face Mask and do the hard work with everyone else. No wonder his subordinates were so loyal to him. Ghost Face Mask's temperament was truly extraordinary. Tang Tian was not talking nonsense because of Niechio's blindness. His senses were naturally sharp, adding the strengthening he received. Even Tang Tian was ashamed of his inferiority. After entering the Sin domain, Niechio's strength was crippled, but his senses became even more refined. Mingzhu glanced at the sky and immediately said, everyone quickly enter the castle. If the entire Null division is gathered they can definitely sweep the entire Sin domain. Things in the wild are extremely dangerous. Daoist was experienced. Ordinary wild beasts know how to avoid the rainbow flow. To survive in the Sin domain, every single species has their own way of survival. We need to arrange for people to stand guard at night because after the rainbow flow passes, the wild beasts in the mountains will move out. Some of them will look for plants and roots that have been destroyed, while others will hunt for food. We are currently quite far from the purple cuckoo city, and the number of wild beasts here will definitely not be small. I will stand guard tonight, master. Give me a few more people so that I can coordinate with them. Rainbow flow. Someone exclaimed. The tempering of the mental state was far more difficult than that of the physical body. Although it had many drawbacks, but it also had advantages that the wooden ash stone did not. Its ability to resist the rainbow flow was even better than the wooden ash stone. Furthermore, it could emit a unique cloud chi that could nourish the flesh and was extremely beneficial to the human body. The processing of the agate cloud stone was much more difficult than the wood ash stone. It was much tougher and could not be cut using law threads. As long as one relied on the pure power of the physique, the wood ash stone would be much softer and easier to process. Today the Null division's performance had shocked him like never before. If all the Null division were like that, Daoist felt that no one else would be able to tame them. He somewhat understood why the Liu family would exchange 200 prisoners for the Shui family. The Liu family had probably already discovered this. Echo Hill Castle, a castle reflecting the splendor of the mountains. Tang Tian got Han Bingning to follow Daoist to keep watch. Daoist was experienced and was more familiar with the various wild beasts in the Sin domain, while Han Bingning's strength was second only to Tang Tian's. The multicolored light swept along the mountain ridge like a light brush. All of the agate cloud stones were rarely used to build cities, but were instead used to build residences. When the light brush swept past the top of Echo Hill Castle, Tang Tian felt the blood in his body churning and his face changed. He could clearly feel that inside the multicolored and enchanting light brush, the laws were extremely chaotic and dangerous. Tang Tian retracted his gaze and looked outside the castle. Wherever the light brush passed, the mountain ridge would reveal countless of cracks, and a few of the trees that originally had many branches and leaves had become bare, with broken branches and leaves all over the ground. All of the vines were in a mess. Tang Tian was dumbstruck when he heard that. He only felt that the world was vast and filled with all sorts of strange things. He then heard the rumbling sounds in the sky. The rumbling sounds were extremely messy. There were rumbling sounds like thunder and also the cries of night owls. There were also the hissing sounds causing his hair to stand. In the Sin domain, survival was extremely cruel, and people who were crippled often had bad fates. People who were blind could not survive in the Sin domain. Looking at the originally dim and dilapidated stone castle in their hands, it became bright and beautiful, causing everyone to be filled with a sense of accomplishment. And the agate cloud stones had another flaw, that was, After a period of time, the cloud patterns would slowly become blurry, and at that time they would have to be polished again to expose the cloud patterns, which meant that they had to be maintained after a period of time and required a lot of manpower. The light brush could not do anything to the mist, and without stopping it swept past. Master might not know, but all of these wild beasts have their own unique abilities. This time the one who spoke was Xianxia. He had traveled extensively and was knowledgeable. For example, that mosquito fruit tree, Master sees that it is on the verge of death, but its roots are extremely developed, spreading out to a radius of a few mu. As long as it is not uprooted, its vitality will not be harmed, and tomorrow it will sprout. And for those steel thread vines, their life force is even more tenacious. As long as the rainbow stream ends, they will start to grow again. Some of the plants even know how to use the rainbow stream. For example, that fallen tree. It is called that because as long as the rainbow stream passes by, its branches will be broken, and the broken branches will float with the wind, and as long as it lands on the ground, it can take root and reproduce. He remembered clearly that when they had just arrived, although there were not many trees in the mountain ridge, but they were still verdant and lush. Before Mingzhu finished speaking, the rainbow stream arrived. Niechio's mind trembled. He suddenly became clear-headed and sat down cross-legged. They had to fight for every second. Many parts of Mirror Stone Castle had collapsed, and it was the most dangerous place. But luckily for a Maori and the other human cranes, the large stones were as light as a feather in their hands, and under the guidance of the Xue family's craftsmen, they quickly repaired the place. The ladies of the Xue family looked at the group of iron-blooded men, many of their eyes filled with splendor. Mingzhu noticed them and was moved. The Xue family had the most unmarried ladies. Regardless of how one looked at it, the Null Division prisoners were the best choice. All of them had extremely strong bodies. All of their blood and chi were flourishing like flames. In the cold and gloomy Sin domain, they emitted a fatal attraction. No wonder the ladies in the residence were secretly moved. Everyone entered the castle. Tang Tian looked through the window curiously and observed the rainbow stream. Everyone could not help but increase their speed once the rainbow stream arrived. If they did not hide in the castle, their lives would be in danger. Tang Tian and the rest did not know what the rainbow stream was, but seeing how anxious everyone was, they knew that it was something dangerous. Mingzhu looked at Niechio in shock. She did not understand. With the protection of the cloud rocks, they should not be affected. She had noticed Niechio before. He was extremely eye-catching in the Null Division. He was different from the other members who had beast-like bodies. His body was weak and could not even be compared to the ladies of the Xue family. But the most eye-catching thing was his eyes, which could not see. She retracted her thoughts and started to clean even more diligently. If not for Ghost Face Mask and the rest with the ladies of the Xue family, it would take a long time for them to restore Echo Hill Castle. When the rainbow light swept across Echo Hill Castle, the cloud patterns on the agate cloud rocks seemed to be awakened. A faint mist emerged from the cloud rocks, and in the blink of the eye, the entire Echo Hill Castle was enveloped in a thin layer of mist. Sha sha sha. Everyone was doing their best to polish the outer walls of Echo Hill Castle. Maybe Niechio can find a brand new path. At the start he was helpless when he followed Ghost Face Mask, but now Taixia's heart was filled with anticipation. The servants who were originally clearing the weeds outside all ran back. Tang Tian was curious but still said, "Everyone go in and hide." Mingzhu's heart trembled. She could not help but look at Tang Tian, who was working. How did he create such a powerful elite army? She lacked understanding of armies, and in her heart, the Null Division was not inferior to the archer unit led by Qin Zishan. Mingzhu knew that Tang Tian was an outsider and explained by the side. The sky above Sin Domain is the place where spatial laws are the most chaotic. Every few days the chaotic spatial laws will clash with each other and form a unique vortex. The more the vortices roll, the bigger they become. They are like an avalanche sweeping up all the law threads along the way. That is the rainbow flow. Master can see that the rainbow flow is so colorful because of the large number of law threads mixed in. Just at that moment, Niechio suddenly sensed something and raised his head. There's a situation. As for the rest, Tang Tian did not have the intention to waste time. He wanted them to quickly understand how to fight in Sin Domain. The Null Division's fighting spirit was high, and they were extremely disciplined. Even when they were working, they were solemn and silent. Everyone immersed themselves in their work. It was because of that Niechio could feel the chaotic flow of laws through the agate cloud rocks, and thus was affected by it. Niechio felt as though he was being tortured, but it was also an extremely good way to train his mental state. The craftsman said that it was called agate cloud rock, and was a top-notch building material. Its ability to resist against the rainbow flow was much better than the wood ash stone. But its production was rather small, and rarely could it satisfy the requirements for building a city. Mingzhu shouted out. She did not look like a young miss at all. Her sleeves were rolled up, her forehead was covered in perspiration, and her forehead was even stained with grass. Tang Tian suddenly frowned. The rainbow flow will come after a period of time, then why are the plants still so lush? But Mingzhu was surprised to realize that Niachio's position in the Null Division was not low, and even Ghost Face Mask respected his opinions. Mingzhu then understood, Niachio most likely had other talents. Suddenly, a groan came out from beside him. Tang Tian turned to look. Niachio's face was pale white, and his entire body was trembling. Tang Tian immediately understood. Niachio's senses were extremely sharp, and the chaos and danger inside the rainbow flow affected him even more. Sand and stones flew everywhere as though it was the end of the world. Daoist took the initiative to volunteer. His attitude was extremely positive. In the gloomy sky, a multicolored light belt appeared. The light belt continued to corrode and spread outwards, sweeping towards them. Mingzhu sighed in her heart. It was a battle with their backs against the wall. Starting from zero, the haze that had shrouded her heart was swept away, and she could not help but give birth to a trace of anticipation. Chapter 727. Tang Tian nodded his head as he listened. The method was too suitable for the Null Division. Daoist, who was standing guard on the stone wall, heard the commotion and turned to look. In the next moment his body froze, his expression froze, he was dumbstruck. Oh, how do I win with strength? Tang Tian saw that there was a way and was immediately roused. If we were to say that Daoist's power of the physique was a small candle, then Amauri's power of the physique was like a blazing bonfire. I have chosen. Crazy Tang, come, let us have a good fight. I will beat you until all your teeth fall out. Daoist, who was on the stone wall, regained his senses and his eyes immediately turned red. There were so many law threads that he could choose from, and he wanted to jump down and choose for himself. After a while there was still no movement. Daoist immediately jumped to Tang Tian's side. Master, let him choose quickly. Countless of multicolored light beams formed a thick light belt that revolved around Amauri's body, and no one could see Amauri's figure inside. But if it takes too long, the power of the physique will be exhausted and all the law threads will dissipate next time. Daoist said anxiously. The emergence of laws was a stage that all Sin domain martial artists had to go through, and the research on it was extremely mature, and everyone had accumulated many experiences. Because of the long hesitation, the power of the physique would be exhausted, and there were countless examples of failure. Amauri picked his laws on the third day. Wait for tomorrow? Old Granny Shui walked in and said, Master, this old lady might have a way. As long as they could find a suitable law and assimilate it into their own martial techniques, they would be able to form a preliminary fighting strength. Daoist's heart trembled when he heard that. What kind of people are they? Using injuries to exchange for lives. How can this blind man be so vicious? So he chose the simplest method, which was to let them figure it out yourselves. Everyone has experienced the emergence of laws before. The weaker ones can only produce 7 or 8, and the more outstanding ones can produce more law threads. But this 30M law belt, is he still human? What surprised Tang Tian was that the person was actually a Maori. After saying that, Tang Tian patted his butt and left. After sparring, everyone had a heated discussion. Everyone benefited a lot. Everything was going smoothly, but Tang Tian could tell that there was still a long way to go before they could truly form a fighting force. Compared to competing with one's body, the usage of laws required one's comprehension ability, and people like Han Bingning with such comprehension ability were extremely rare in the Null Division. Amauri's beast-like body was filled with flesh and blood, comparable to Tang Tian. The scene of the laws materializing was extremely spectacular. Although Amauri and the rest trained in zero-energy bodies, but their zero-energy bodies were not as pure as Tang Tian's, and they still had a lot of space to temper their bodies. Tang Tian hoped that even if not everyone could ignite their origin flame, at least half of them would be able to reach this stage. Life essence was rare because it was the most extreme form of the law of life and death. It represented the most primal life force. This. To the Null Division, sparring was the method they were most familiar with, and their tiny null flames, was created through this method. So when Tang Tian gave the order, they formed groups of 3 to 5 and started to experiment. The truth proved that the master's words were wrong. He might not have thought it through. Tang Tian looked and said. Mingzhu, who was at the side, subconsciously covered her mouth. She swallowed the gasp that was about to come out. Her eyes were filled with shock. In her blank mind, there was only one word: genius. He was numb. Tang Tian's body was brimming with life force. The life essence continued to permeate into Tang Tian's body, strengthening Tang Tian's flesh and blood. The flesh and blood became stronger, and the origin force produced became even more surging. The second step was for Tang Tian to let them continue tempering their bodies. Tang Tian did not know how to assimilate laws into his own martial techniques. Tang Tian had already started to understand that the essence of the life essence was pure life laws. Very quickly someone else succeeded. Luckily there were no ridiculous light belts of 30 m, but every single one of them had a radius of 15 m. He was dazed. He stood there. He felt that he had to defend his common sense. He wanted to use facts to prove that the master's words were wrong. Tang Tian started to guide everyone on how to activate the power of the physique and allow the law threads to materialize. Tang Tian spoke in detail, and combined with his own experiences, he himself trained in the zero-energy body and knew what problems everyone would encounter, so he explained in detail. Tai Xie in Sin Domain, how do martial artists like them fight? After igniting the primordial fire origin, the life essence would be able to display its true potential. But if the body was filled with impurities, it would not have any effect. Even when the wild figure was beaten up by Tang Tian to the point of looking for his teeth on the floor, it was unable to raise his interest at all. Inside the light belts, a Maori's expression was sluggish. He stared blankly at the dazzling law threads in front of him and muttered, "Which one should I wash first? Which one should I wash?" They were all muscular men, and it was not easy for them to play any tricks. Tang Tian was in a difficult position. He looked at Tai Xie, who was listless like an eggplant, and had a thought. I can ask Tai Xie. I do not believe that the Sin domain is filled with intelligent people, and that there will always be people with bad brains. At this time I can try to figure out how to form a formation. Space, time, life and death, the three great laws, all of them were vast and profound and had a huge system. It was different from the eternity of space and time. Life and death were unpredictable. Life and death were like the two sides of a coin, they would always exist at the same time. Out of the 65 null division members, other than Xianxia, all of them had found their own laws. What made him feel even crazier was that the group of people had already started to practice. Their crazy looks caused him to feel a chill in his heart, as though they had a deep hatred for each other. The figure that was laughing maniacally at the sky was an indescribable mockery. But Tai Xie was already out of strength. His weak spirit was heavily injured. He felt as though his knowledge of the world had been completely overturned, and the scene in front of him caused his heart to bleed. Tai Xie reacted. He quivered and immediately roused himself. Master, the so-called using strength to win means using the power of the physique to win. The various laws have endless variations, but the most basic variations are always 3 to 5 types. As long as you master these 3 to 5 types, with your powerful power of the physique, as long as you use the power of the physique every time, your might will not be small, and that is using strength to win. In terms of the power of the physique, no one in the group could compare to the barbaric bull, but in terms of comprehension. Before he had finished, there were already people who were able to make laws appear. The null division members all stood straight. Other than them, there was also Ping Xiaoshan. All of the lupus men were extremely excited to be able to obtain the personal guidance of the king. The others would definitely be envious to death if they knew. Ping Xiaoshan was also excited. He did not know why, but the strict null division had a fatal attraction to him. He had always been alone, and when he walked on the road he had to be cautious at all times. He had to be extremely careful in everything he did. What was a partner? He had never had one. In a radius of 30 m, countless of law threads formed into a multicolored light belt. Tai Xie had to admit that a person's endurance could always be improved. When he saw the light belts lighting up one after another, none of them were smaller than 10 m, he was no longer surprised. Tai Xie subconsciously blurted out, using strength to win. But the cornelian cloud rock was a good material to resist the cold at night. The others also started to look for a place to test it out. An army would forever need to coordinate with each other. If not, an army would not have any value, and that was Xianxia's job. Niechio's mind was outstanding and he did not adhere to the rules, and was well versed in army tactics, and was undoubtedly the most suitable candidate. Taixia thought that he had heard wrongly. He opened his mouth wide, his expression sluggish. What kind of person's power of the physique can allow laws to materialize tomorrow? Niechio suddenly spoke up. That's right, we have to initiate a clash and it is best to have 1 or 2 life-threatening techniques. Our strength is strong enough. As long as we hit the enemy they will definitely die. As long as we do not injure our vitals, our bodies will recover quickly and we will have the advantage. Using injuries to exchange for lives like that, in terms of imposing manner, we are stronger than the enemy. On the stone plains of Echo Hill Castle, the rocks and weeds had all been cleared. The cornelian cloud rock released a faint warmth, dispersing the coldness of the night. Tang Tian had never stayed in the wilderness of the Xin domain before, and did not know that the temperature difference between day and night was extremely huge. The coldness of the night could easily seep into the flesh and quietly corrode it. Everyone had 0 energy bodies and the power of the physique was extremely abundant, and they were able to learn quickly. Heaven's Road's martial techniques were much more refined than the Xin domain. The only difference was the laws. In Heaven's Road, gaining enlightenment on laws was something that was done after reaching a high level, but in the Xin domain, there were no energy disturbances, and laws were much easier to discover and use than in Heaven's Road. Ping Xiaoshan's face turned pale white. He took a deep breath. What's going on? The other members looked at Amauri in envy and all dispersed. No one was unhappy. Amauri had always been extremely tyrannical in the Null Division, and he trained extremely hard and was a straightforward person, thus he was extremely popular with everyone. He propped his chin on his hand and guarded the stone wall for the entire night, his eyes never leaving the largest band of light. He firmly believed that no one's laws would be able to last for an entire night. Such a ridiculous statement. Even if it was said by the master, it was still ridiculous. Tang Tian muttered. With his intelligence, I reckon he will choose tomorrow. Tang Tian clapped his hands and shouted, Everyone find a place and try it out yourselves. It will definitely not be easy at the start, but once you find the knack to it, it will be much easier. Tang Tian did not waste any time. He immediately started to talk about how to use the power of the physique, and how to find a suitable law for himself. The higher the degree of tempering one's body, the more benefits one would obtain from absorbing life origin essence. Once the life laws were assimilated into their body would become even more vibrant, it would be able to produce even more origin force, and upon being injured, it would be able to heal even faster. Oh, it's fine. Tang Tian shook his head. So when Tang Tian saw the countless law threads appearing beside Amauri, he was so shocked that his eyeballs almost dropped to the ground. Chapter 728. Lu Tianwen flew along the mountain ridge. 1 step 1/5 steps to kill. The truth proved that it was extremely difficult for a bad student to learn from books. The book was filled with words causing Tang Tian to feel dizzy. Luckily for him, Mingzhu had learned the heavy demonic execution before, and teaching it to him was not a problem. Mingzhu demonstrated it from start to finish, and then explained the contents of the book to him, only to realize that Tang Tian had already started to practice it. Tang Tian listened quietly. He did not really understand the emotions of the big families, but he could hear the old granny's reminiscence and the changes of time and fate. The books here are all written by the first generation of ancestors who were exiled to the Xin domain. Because most of them are written from memory, there will inevitably be mistakes, and most of them do not have any value and can only be used as references. It was because of the heavy demonic execution that the Shui family gradually gained a foothold in the Xin domain and built the Echo Hill Castle. The old granny sighed. This Echo Hill Castle in the past used up a lot of manpower and resources. Let's talk about the heavy demonic execution. The heavy demonic execution was born from the 3-marked demonic body and has an extremely powerful effect on the physique. That generation's patriarch had outstanding talent. His physique was extremely tyrannical, and by relying on the heavy demonic execution he was invincible. But as time passed, gradually, the heavy demonic execution lost its might, and became more and more mediocre. The heavy demonic execution was very simple. It was like an incomplete origin force. Killing intent flashed past Lu Tianwen's eyes. He did not hide himself, and soared into the sky like an eagle, flying towards the Echo Hill Castle. Halfway there, Lu Tianwen found out that the Shui family had sided with Ghost Face Mask, and that the Qin family had suffered heavy losses. When Tang Tian entered, he could not help but lighten his footsteps. His face was filled with respect. Although he was a bad student, but Tang Tian still had respect for knowledge. Tang Tian was immersed in the heavy demonic execution. He did not use any weapons, but used his hand as a blade and slashed in the air. The heavy demonic execution required the entire body to cooperate, to be able to use the power of the physique, so every slash contained the corresponding footwork, and all the muscles in the body would be activated. As though they knew what he was thinking, the alarm sounded out. There was an enemy invasion. Mingzhu explained a little and he roughly understood. The heavy sky demonic execution walked the path of winning through brute force. There weren't many variations and there were only 5 moves. Furthermore, they were all extremely simple. Its power came entirely from the technique it used to stimulate flesh power. He felt that things had become troublesome. Seems like I have to kill Ghost Face Mask. But when he thought of Qinzhen, he couldn't help but rejoice in his misfortune. Qinzhen was full of ambition. After arriving at the Galloping Horse City, he made a series of big plans. By now, the news had probably reached Qinzhen's ears. That conceited guy must be stamping with rage. Tang Tian also understood why the Shui residents had gradually declined. This method of using brute force to overcome technique was extremely demanding on the body. The Shui clan's ancestors' innate talent, coupled with the continuous absorption of the life essence within the golden steel gravel, he was able to unleash the true might of the immovable heavy chop. However, his descendants were not as talented as him, and they lost the secret of the golden steel gravel, so it was naturally difficult for them to achieve anything. Old Madame Shui's face showed no signs of regret. The old madam felt gratified. Suddenly she heard Tang Tian whisper in embarrassment, how do I read these words? It's not only us, all the other families are the same. The Shui family's most famous inheritance, Cloud Wave, is already unusable. Our ancestors exhausted their blood and sweat, but were unable to revive it in the Sin domain. Under that helplessness, our ancestors could only search for a way out from other inheritances. After going through so much hardship, our ancestors finally saw hope in an unorthodox inheritance. This inheritance was called the 3 Marks Devil Body, and out of all the inheritances that the Shui family had collected, this 3 Marks Devil Body could only be considered one of the weakest. But our ancestors realized that although the 3 Marks Devil Body was considered one of the weakest in the Sacred Saint Galaxy, but the technique of transforming flesh and blood was extremely exquisite, and with a slight modification, it could perfectly adapt to the Sin domain. That generation's most powerful ancestors spent a large amount of time and brainstormed, fusing in the laws, and finally created the Shui family's secret technique, heavy demonic execution. The old madam did not reply but continued. The first-generation ancestor died in battle, but the heavy demonic execution was completely preserved. The second-generation ancestor trained in the heavy demonic execution and became an expert, although he was not as tyrannical as the first-generation ancestor, but he was still famous. But when it came to the third generation, there were no more experts. At that time, the Shui family also had a strange situation. The number of babies that were born were female, and in recent years they were all female babies. We did not find it. The old madam shook her head. After finding the clues, we thought of ways to unravel the secret of the golden steel gravel. But all of our attempts were in vain. The golden steel gravel is extremely tough, and we thought of all methods but were unable to break it. We also tried to swallow it, but to no avail. The last time this old lady heard Master say that there was life origin essence inside, this old lady finally understood. The heavy demonic execution is not complicated and does not have many variations, but it consumes a large amount of power from the physique. Our ancestors probably swallowed a large amount of life origin essence to be able to unleash the might of the heavy demonic execution to its maximum. The golden steel gravel is produced by the golden steel silkworm, and the golden steel silkworm is extremely Yin in nature, and because of its influence on the Shui family's disciples, the number of female babies kept increasing. This old lady only understood after a few days. In his vision, a stone castle could be clearly seen at the peak of the mountain. The old madam spoke in one breath and was slightly tired. She took a sip of tea to moisten her throat. Lu Tianwen did not have a good impression of Qinzhen. Qinzhen was an extremely intelligent man with unfathomable strength, But he was overly conceited, causing others to dislike him. Forget it, let's just treat it as a good thing, Lu Tianwen consoled himself. Lu Tianwen was too lazy to enter the city to chat with Lu Lingnan. His thoughts were simple: to quickly settle everything. As long as he killed Ghost Face Mask, he could throw all the miscellaneous chores to Lu Lingnan. Mingzhu was completely dumbstruck. She never knew about all of these secrets. Is Ghost Face Mask actually that strong? Such a tyrannical martial technique. If the body was stronger, the might would definitely be stronger, and if the body was weaker, the might would not be weaker. Could it be that I did not train properly? Or is there something missing? Tang Tian felt that it was strange. Normally speaking, even if the martial technique inheritance had different talents, it was extremely rare for it to become mediocre. The news that Lu Lingnan sent over had marked the location of the Echo Hill Castle. There were no complicated changes, but the concept could be said to be a genius. Han Bingning and the rest stopped at the tiny null flame, while the heavy demonic execution took another step forward, gathering the power as one, using the heavy to break the technique. He could not wait for an enemy to jump out and have a good fight. Lu Tianwen's heart trembled. Upon receiving Ling Nan's news, the Lu family sent out Lu Tianwen without hesitation. The Lu family's foundation was much deeper than the Qin family, as the Qin family was supported by Qin Zhen alone, and the four great generals were all outsiders. But the Lu family had many experts, and Lu Tianwen was one of them. The Shui family has a history of over 2,000 years. It is not considered long in the Sacred Saint Galaxy, but it is still a long history. Old Granny Shui's tone was filled with pride, but more of it was sadness. The Shui family was once a small family in the mountains, and our ancestors accidentally obtained an inheritance which allowed us to improve. At that time, the Shui family's power was still in its embryonic stage, but the patriarch knew that the Shui family's foundation was shallow, and did not indulge in extravagant ways, but spent a lot of effort to search for all sorts of inheritances. At that time, the Shui family built a library, called the Shuiwen Library. Inside were all sorts of ancient records that they had searched for, allowing the disciples of the Shui family to borrow and study. It was also because of our first-generation ancestors' hard work that the Shui family produced many outstanding disciples, and thus the Shui family was able to flourish in the future. Tang Tian looked around. In the short span of a few days, the place had become brand new. The stone walls and corners of the room no longer had any dust or cobwebs. Fresh rattan-woven bookshelves filled the entire room, and the bookshelves were filled with books. That slash would definitely be earth-shattering, Tang Tian said solemnly. I will definitely not disappoint this absolute art. The Shui family declined just like that. The old granny sighed. Heavy demonic execution has an extremely high requirement for the power of the physique, and in terms of the tyrannical physique, the females cannot compare to the males. The might of the heavy demonic execution became weaker and weaker, and now even ordinary martial artists are unable to defeat it. This situation was too strange, and every generation of the Shui family hoped to find the answer. But a pity our ancestors did not leave any records. Until we flipped through the records of the time, we accidentally realized that there were no records of the golden steel gravel being sold. The golden steel gravel has limited uses. Other than being able to create weapons, it has no other uses. And our ancestors' generation did not even use the golden steel gravel to create weapons. Until we flipped through the records of the Silkworm Workshop, we realized that all of the golden steel gravel was given to our ancestors. But killing Ghost Face Mask is too good for him. Sounds very powerful. Tang Tian started to get interested. Tang Tian's face congealed, his expression becoming more and more serious. The law of the heavy demonic execution was extremely unique. It was ignition. But this ignition did not burn flames, but the power of the physique. Along the way, he heard news about Ghost Face Mask, causing him to be extremely shocked. Killing the two generals of the Qin family was not a big deal, but the destruction of Qin Zizhen's archer unit caused him to be shocked. Tang Tian suddenly thought about the tiny null flame that Han Bingning and the rest trained in. Was a similar technique. It is truly suitable for the null division. Tang Tian's mind was roused. The zero energy body's power of the physique was already extremely abundant, and after going through ignition, it became many times stronger, and then using the heavy demonic execution to gather all of the power in the body into one slash. Mingzhu listened respectfully by the side. Although she had long memorized the contents of the slash, but listening to the madam's explanation she was still in a daze. Such a powerful slash was truly to her liking. Tang Tian felt the blood in his body boiling, but he had to suppress it. He suspected that if he were to unleash his full strength, Echo Hill Castle would be overturned by him. 5 slashes. Each slash was more tyrannical and wild than the last. The figures in Tang Tian's mind surged, all of them slashing forward with unstoppable force. There's such a thing? Tang Tian was dumbstruck, feeling that it was inconceivable. It was not strange for martial techniques to be lost, but for the babies to be born female it was unheard of. Tang Tian, who was listening attentively, asked, "What happened after that? Did you guys find the secret inside?" The old granny paused for a moment, then took out a book and spoke with a serious expression. "This is the heavy demonic execution. I will hand it over to Master. I hope that it will be able to display its might in Master's hands." The Lu family's intention was to end the battle quickly, and requested for him to bring the entire Shui family back in the shortest time possible. The Lu family's patience had already been exhausted. Qin Zizhen's archer unit was not well known outside, and had always kept a low profile, but the fear that the various families had towards the archer unit was second only to Qin Zhen. The elite soldiers wielded sharp weapons and were well trained, and even Lu Tianwen did not dare guarantee that he would be able to escape unscathed in front of the archer unit. It was able to instantly gather all the power of the physique into one point, and its might was naturally ferocious. Chapter 729. Bang bang bang. The sword body instantly crumbled like a biscuit. Han Bingning looked as though he was struck by lightning. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backwards. On the Xin Domain's list of powerhouses, Lu Tianwen was ranked 39. When Tang Tian rushed over, he coincidentally saw Han Bingning fighting with the enemy. Turtle shell martial artists were the natural enemies of the archer unit. Lu Tianwen, who was in a killing frenzy, did not have any thoughts of holding back. His body moved along with his spear. With the sound of wind and thunder, he went straight for Han Bingning. Bang bang bang. Tai Xie's voice was trembling. He had followed Lu Lingnan and was extremely familiar with the experts of the Lu family, and immediately recognized the enemy, causing his face to turn ashen. Tai Xie was familiar with Lu Tianwen not only because of the Lu family, but every infamous person was extremely familiar with Lu Tianwen. The concentrated explosion sounds were like one. But it did not matter. No matter how strong the turtle shell was, he could easily shatter it. Tang Tian felt an astonishing power surging towards him. He snorted, and with a flash he appeared 15 m away like a ghost, and staggered a few steps before stabilizing himself. He threw the unconscious Han Bingning to a Maori and turned to face Lu Tianwen. Han Bingning's attack made his eyes light up. Cold laws were not rare, and he did not even place a law surface in his eyes. The only thing that he admired was the extremely pure sword concept, which was extremely rare. So fast. Clang clang clang. Satisfying. Tang Tian did not even have the intention to reply. Tai Xie had told him about the Lu family. As for who Lu Tianwen was or how powerful he was, he did not care. The fighting intent in his chest was surging, and he only wanted to get rid of him. Bang. The old granny's face was covered with tears. The heavens had taken pity on them. The Shui family's heavy demonic execution had finally seen the light of day. Tang Tian had long moved the moment Lu Tianwen pointed at Han Bingning's sword body. He snatched a blade from Tai Xie's hands like lightning, and his figure disappeared. In the next moment he appeared beside Han Bingning, and after receiving Han Bingning he slashed out. Lu Tianwen's pupils constricted again. He had never seen anyone with such a unique floating technique. Ghost-face Tang Tian? The pressure on Han Bingning increased sharply. The rope that bound her hair was cut by the turbulence in the air. Her hair was in a mess, but she was tenacious. The more pressure she was under, the more competitive she became. She used all her strength in every strike. His face was gloomy as he pointed his blade at Lu Tianwen. Lu Tianwen did not panic. People who trained in spatial laws loved to play such tricks. Lu Tianwen's face revealed a sneer. His spatial laws appeared and disappeared unpredictably, but the ripples produced when space was torn apart was unable to escape his senses. Then Lu Tianwen's pupils constricted. Tang Tian's posture was extremely strange. The blade was placed vertically in front of him and pushed forward. The sound of wind and thunder rang out, and the wild lightning created a dazzling belt of light in the air. With a confident and extraordinary demeanor, The spear glowed with flowing light as it pierced forward. Lu Tianwen only felt a terrifying power suddenly surging out from the spear body. His palms turned hot, and he almost lost control of the spear body. The deep pit suddenly exploded. Wind and thunder flashed, and Lu Tianwen suddenly appeared at the place where he had attacked. Sky Demonic Second Execution. Tang Tian stopped a Maori who wanted to rush forward. He could tell that although Han Bingning was bitterly holding on, and was in imminent danger, but her sword concept did not have any signs of dissipating, and such battle experience was extremely precious to her. Upon closer observation, Lu Tianwen became interested. His eyes were sharp and experienced, and with one look he could tell that Han Bingning's sword techniques were not the style of the Sin domain. The Sin domain's martial techniques originated from the Sacred Saint Galaxy, but the Sacred Saint Galaxy emphasized on energy, while the Sin domain emphasized on laws, but in terms of the exquisiteness of their techniques, they were extremely ordinary. He could completely use his speed to play with the archer unit in his palms. Of course, he was not stupid enough to attack the archer unit head-on, but when he heard that Ghost Face Mask was attacking the archer unit head-on, he was shocked and felt that Ghost Face Mask was definitely proficient in defensive laws. Like a ghost or a wild beast, the blurry heavy slash. Bang. Lu Tianwen. What technique is that? But after more than 10 moves, the opponent was still bitterly holding on, causing Lu Tianwen to be surprised. It had been a long time since he had met an enemy that could block more than 10 moves from him. His Thunder Wind spear moved with the wind and thunder. Every spear had the power of 1,000 catties, much less a delicate lady. Even the robust men who were known for their strength would find it hard to block 3 to 5 moves from him. Lu Tianwen fiercely grabbed onto the spear body. The surging power caused his body to fly out like an arrow. When Han Bingning scolded him, he even had the time to admire Han Bingning's beauty, and sighed in his heart that it was a pity for such a beauty to die in his hands. However, he wasn't like his good-for-nothing nephew. He wasn't that interested in beauties. The 9th-ranked a grade infamous Fu Runbai had once lost to him, and swore to never step into Galloping Horse City again. Bang. The last bit of restraint that he had was instantly destroyed by the clash of the blades. The excitement from gaining enlightenment on the heavy demonic execution, as well as the anger from witnessing Han Bingning being suppressed, was currently roaring and churning in Tang Tian's chest. A series of air shields formed and shattered beneath Tang Tian's feet. Like a floating bridge, a lightning-fast figure pounced towards Lu Tianwen like a ferocious tiger. The Lu family dared to send Lu Tianwen alone. It meant that they had absolute confidence in his strength. Without Qingjin, unless the other families worked together, they would be able to block Lu Tianwen's Thunderwind spear. In Lu Tianwen's eyes, Purple Cuckoo City was just a small city, not worth mentioning. The only person he was interested in was Qingjin. But he was extremely fearful of Qingjin. He was extremely crafty, and if he was not careful he would fall into the pit that the other party had dug. His gaze became sharp. Using his waist as an axis, he twisted his body in midair, his spear shooting out like a flood dragon. The rapidly approaching Tang Tian's figure was a blur, but Lu Tianwen could clearly see that every single joint and muscle in Tang Tian's body seemed to have come alive. Lu Tianwen seemed to be able to see countless of streams flowing out from every corner of Tang Tian's body, like 100 streams flowing into the sea. They surged into Tang Tian's right arm. The two of them clashed fiercely without any fancy moves. The strength of the Lu family could be seen. Plang. The revolving spear was like a vortex, producing an astonishing suction force. The wind and thunder that enveloped Lu Tianwen's body was suddenly sucked away by the suction force, and the dense wind and thunder flowed along the spear body. This spear released a destructive aura. Seeing that the spear tip and the blade were about to clash, the blade that was erected was like a guillotine. It fiercely slashed downwards without any accumulation of power. The slash was extremely violent. The strongest person in Purple Cuckoo City was Qingjin, ranked 43rd on the list of powerhouses. Lu Tianwen was not the strongest person in the Lu family. The strongest was the current patriarch of the Lu family, Lu Xiang, a peak martial artist ranked 16th on the list of powerhouses. Lu Tianwen squinted his eyes and licked his lips, as though he had met an interesting prey. Although the blade did not have any fancy moves, but the power was not weak, it was satisfying. The mountain was unable to bear the weight and started to crumble. His spear technique was unique. It had the power of wind and thunder and was called Thunderwind Spear. Their target was the long saber that was dragged by the side of his body. Lu Tianwen swaggered into the Echo Hill Castle. It was a small castle that he did not place in his eyes at all. On the path of the Lu family's rise, he had swept away many obstacles for the Lu family, and there were many of such small strongholds. After probing for a few moves, Lu Tianwen lost interest. The heaven-shaking explosion caused everyone's ears to go numb. The terrifying white chi wave exploded out, mixed with countless of green auras and lightning. It struck the mountain peak closest to the two of them. Han Bingning was obviously at a disadvantage. The opponent's attacks were extremely sharp. His body was like lightning. Every spear was imbued with the power of wind and thunder, and every time the sword and spear clashed, Han Bingning's sword auras would instantly shatter. But even so, with their strength, they were still able to fight their way into the top 50 of Sin Domain's list of powerhouses, and were the strongest martial artists in the Sin Domain. But such a powerful martial artist was still defeated by Lu Tianwen. Only blood and battles could make him excited. I have to settle the battle quickly against such a level of opponent. There is nothing interesting to speak of. It hit the spearhead. Everyone was dumbstruck by this head-on clash between the two. The clash between the two was not easy to deal with. Tang Tian felt as though he was struck by a wild beast. He was unable to control his body and was flung out. Lu Tianwen was not any better. Tang Tian's slash was accompanied by the momentum, causing him to fly out like a rubber ball, crashing into the mountain peak behind him, revealing a bottomless pit. The mountain peak looked as though it had been struck by a whip. Rocks and soil shot out. A deep slash mark appeared on the mountain peak. Lu Tianwen consecutively speared out 7 times, all of them striking Han Bingning's sword blade like lightning. Very quickly Lu Tianwen understood. The lady's law surface was at the initial stage, but her sword techniques were extremely exquisite. Adding her sword concept at the initial stage, she was able to block him. After gaining enlightenment on heavy demonic execution, Tang Tian was itching to fight, and upon seeing Han Bingning being suppressed, the rage in his heart could no longer be suppressed. If not for the fact that he knew that fighting against experts was extremely important to Han Bingning, he would have rushed out long ago. Tang Tian's figure suddenly disappeared. Every spear was filled with wind and thunder. Dazzling lightning enveloped the spear tip. It was extremely powerful. His spear force was endless, each spear heavier than the last. What power? Lu Tianwen became curious, and the spear force in his hands became even more powerful. Heavy demonic execution. His body stopped in a strange manner. The spear in his hand started to revolve intensely and suddenly thrust it out. A figure appeared out of nowhere in front of his spear aura, as though he was delivering himself to his spear. The blade brazenly broke through the wind and thunder that enveloped the spear tip, and heavily slashed onto the spear tip. This battle is truly inhuman. What an exquisite sword technique. All of the A-grade infamous men were famous people, and their strength was not inferior to the peak martial artists. It was just that most of them were alone, without any family backing them up. They did things without any misgivings and were viewed as infamous men, thus they were listed separately. The power of Lu Tianwen's spear also caused Tang Tian's figure to be pushed back slightly, but at the moment his fighting intent was at its peak, and he did not care about the setback at all. He moved forward in a flash. He did not use any stealth techniques, but stepped on the air to rush forward. After 7 to 8 moves, Han Bingning's chi became chaotic. His entire body was in a sorry state. His clothes were tattered. His eyes revealed a fanatical fighting intent. He licked his lips and shouted, "I will kill all of you." The archer unit that Qin Zizhen commanded was something that he was afraid of, but it was only fear. To attack a powerful martial artist of his level head-on was extremely difficult. If there were a few thousand of them, Lu Tianwen would still have some fear, but with just a few of them, their attacking range was pitifully small. The veins on Lu Tianwen's head twitched. Without thinking, he knew that the slash was even more tyrannical and terrifying than before. In a moment of desperation, Lu Tianwen roared. His entire body surged with dazzling wind and thunder. The green wind mixed with the silver lightning as though he was wearing a beautiful armor. Chapter 730. The legendary fist art had yet to appear, and he was already in such a sorry state. Looking at Tang Tian's unharmed body, and then looking at his charred body, he felt stifled. Blade Devil Transformation, and Executing the Heavens. These two slashes were extremely powerful, and Tang Tian felt that he was unable to control them. The origin force in his body was abundant and boundless, and it was reasonable to say that such a situation should not occur. In terms of the toughness of his body, Tang Tian was almost at the peak. If he wanted to go further, he could only strengthen it through his life essence. Tang Tian was extremely confident in the strength of his body. Even the first ancestor of the Shui family could not be stronger than him in terms of body. Every wind blade that landed on the ground would explode with a loud bang, creating a deep pit that was dozens of feet deep. Continuous explosions sounded from below, and countless mud pillars flew into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the ground below was riddled with holes. Tang Tian's strength was nothing in his eyes. The legendary fist technique did not appear, and Lu Tianwen was always on guard, as it was said that the fist technique was extremely strange. From the start, Lu Tianwen felt that Tang Tian's blade was just a pretense, and his true killing technique was definitely his fist techniques. The blood of such an expert must be even more delicious. The flesh and blood in his body were struggling like surging waves, rumbling endlessly. Tang Tian's gaze became even clearer, the blade in his hand became even more stable, even the berserk null flames around him became quiet and docile, his imposing manner was reserved, without any ruthless aura. Boom boom boom. He raised the long saber in his hand slowly. It was too satisfying. The heavy demonic execution had a total of 5 moves: Blade Devil Transformation, Heaven Defying Slash, Devil Eye Slash, Sacrificial Slash, and Demonic Formless Slash. Wasn't it rumored that Ghostface Mask used his fists? Recalling the experience of the heavy sky demonic chop, Tang Tian's heart stirred. He gripped the hilt of his saber tightly, and the blood and qi in his body surged. His entire body's flesh and blood seemed to be buzzing from the intense battle. In Tang Tian's eyes, the earth-shattering majesty and the terrifying aura were as majestic as the heavens and earth. He finally understood the true essence of the heavy demonic execution. I'm going for the weak point. This time I'll definitely win. Wasn't he supposed to be practicing fist techniques? How to use a saber. It was one thing for him to use a saber so well, but the law he cultivated was actually the life and death law. What a great saber technique. What a ruthless saber technique. Tang Tian's body trembled. Those ripples that passed by him were instantly shattered, and his body became lighter. However, more and more ripples surged over, and the air became viscous again. Now he finally understood why only the first ancestor of the Shui family could truly unleash the power of the heavy demonic execution back then. It was a blade skill that was completely piled up with countless life essence. A light crackling sound came out in the air not far from Lu Tianwen. An electric arc suddenly lit up. Lu Tianwen, whose entire body was charred black, stared at Tang Tian in a daze. He never thought that the power of the blade would be so strange, to actually drill into his spear aura before exploding. Caught off guard, he immediately suffered a great loss. Even though they were far away, the people on the stone wall felt a little unsteady. They couldn't help but feel shocked. Just you wait, I will come again. Such a powerful regenerative ability could only be achieved by those people who mainly trained in life and death laws. The dazzling wind and thunder arcs mixed with the terrifying blade aura shockwave shot out in all directions like formless wind blades enveloped with lightning. Suddenly, Tang Tian felt an intense undulation, causing him to wake up from his thoughts. Only then did he realize that Lu Tianwen was in a strange state. Tang Tian's eyes constricted. The surging power came from the blade, and in that moment Tang Tian sensed that something was amiss. The light slash struck the spear aura, as though the spear aura was sent to Tang Tian's blade. Lu Tianwen, whose entire body was charred black, left angrily. To forge a blade one must bear the pain. To refine the demon one must be bewitched. Lu Tianwen laughed sinisterly and thrust it out with his spear. What made him feel even more sullen was that Tang Tian's wounds were healing. Disguise was forever a disguise. Everyone trained in martial techniques and could never be changed. How can my blade be so powerful? The ripples mixed with the explosive sounds of wind and thunder, suddenly converging at the spear tip, causing the whistling sounds to disappear. Tang Tian was affected. He suddenly roared towards the sky. His decisive and intense fighting intent was like a dancing flame, bringing along a wanton and berserk intent. The clothes on his body fluttered without any wind. The null flames around his body danced like snakes. The ripples in the air upon getting close to Tang Tian would shatter. For some reason Lu Tianwen's pupils constricted. He had seen countless of brilliant blade artists, and to unleash such an ethereal blade strike, only those blade artists with pure and ethereal blade intents were able to unleash it. Just at that moment the origin force in Tang Tian's body that was clashing violently returned to normal, and Tang Tian's aura suddenly became extremely ethereal. His eyes exploded with light aura. He raised his blade and slashed down silently. The blood-red color in Lu Tianwen's eyes became even denser, the spear in his hand gently raised. The formless ripples were like a fish net. The densely packed lightning arcs were like a school of fish being caught in one net. The gloomy sound of the wind became even more terrifying. What a powerful aura! And he had found Tang Tian's weakness. He had long realized that the blade in Tang Tian's hand was an ordinary blade, and was unable to withstand such a strong force. And the spear in his hand was a top-grade treasure. The Lu family had spent a huge sum of money to create the Thunderwind spear. What was the devil's self and the true self, struggling and entangling, hesitating and at a loss? It was human nature, but as long as one could endure it, as long as one persevered, one would eventually see the light and be able to see one's own heart. But there was no fear in his heart, only excitement. Come. It was a saber strike without the slightest bit of smoke and fire. In the end, the thunder wind ball exploded. Tang Tian's body was able to withstand the astonishing power, but his blade was unable to. In the instant he slashed, he dodged and broke through space, disappearing. Tang Tian's true self-execution was not ordinary. It looked to be light and powerless, but when the terrifying power entered the spear aura, it immediately exploded, causing the spear aura to swell up like a balloon, transforming into a thunder wind ball. He could not be bothered to think about it. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Tang Tian. He only had one thought in his mind: kill them all, kill them all. Bang! How long has it been since Lu Tianwen was in such a sorry state? He did not remember. Tang Tian did not move. He endured the pain in his body, his eyes shining brightly. A transparent ripple swept past the electric arc. Woo woo woo, the sound of the wind gradually came out, converging into a low whistling sound that caused people's scalps to go numb. One after another transparent ripple, with the spear tip in Lu Tianwen's hand as the center, it continued to spread out. Crackle crackle crackle, the concentrated and minute explosions sounded out. One after another electric arcs blossomed in the air, and in the blink of the eye, Lu Tianwen's surroundings lit up with densely packed green electric arcs. Woo, a low and gloomy wind sound came out from the electric arcs. The matured law surface projected power. It was vast and powerful. They were like light beams that converged onto Lu Tianwen's body. Lu Tianwen's aura rose frantically. It continued to rise, as though it was as majestic as the heavens and earth. The spear tip released a ripple that spread out like a ripple. Its interference range continued to expand, causing the space around it to become unstable. Bang! The pain and struggle, the hesitation and loss, they would never disappear. They were like a demonic barrier in life. Every time one experienced it, one's vision would become clearer, one's steps would become more stable, and one's state of mind would become more resolute. Lu Tianwen's spear was extremely powerful, and even though he had retreated at the first moment, he was still injured. He looked at the right side of his body. It was badly mutilated, it was charred black, and his bones could be clearly seen. The tyrannical and vicious wind and thunder was still corroding his flesh. In the previous slash, Tang Tian suddenly realized that the origin force in his body was actually left with less than 30%. The origin force in his body was extremely abundant, but under the third slash, it was instantly bottomed out. Tang Tian's origin force surged. The green and silver wind and thunder suddenly flew out. The wounds that were enveloped by the null flames started to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. The origin force in his body was slowly activated, but this time, it was completely different from the previous two slashes. The power of the physique in his body surged and revolved, as though it was struggling and pacing back and forth in his body. The intense conflict caused Tang Tian's entire body to involuntarily tremble. Blood leaked out of the corner of Tang Tian's mouth. The right side of his body was charred black. The terrifying qi firmly locked onto Tang Tian, causing Tang Tian to actually have the misconception that he was unable to move. Tang Tian did not feel anything. He was still reminiscing about the two slashes, although it was his first time using it and he was still somewhat inexperienced, but the two heavy slashes still caused his blood vessels to expand. It was an indescribable feeling of contentment. This was because of his powerful physique, adding his outstanding control over his body. It was the first time he used it and was able to produce such an outstanding result. The path of the sky demon that was destined to contend against the heavens and earth. The pain, struggle and confusion would only increase and become even more intense. His body moved like a spear. A green and silver intersecting wind and thunder spear aura brought forth a whistling sound, as though the spear aura contained countless of fierce beasts. Like a shooting star, it tore through the sky and appeared in front of Tang Tian. Lu Tianwen felt extremely hurt. He had an indescribable sullen feeling. It was as though he had agreed to compete in strength, but in the end the other party wanted to compete in techniques. Alright, if they were to compete in techniques then so be it, but in the end the other party wanted to compete in handsomeness. The blade in his hand shattered, transforming into countless of pieces. Lu Tianwen's bloodshot eyes shone with an ominous light. The fighting intent in his body surged. He never thought that the ghost face mask would actually be so strong. The blade had not even been unleashed, but its chi was already out of the ordinary. Then there must be other profound mysteries. Tang Tian then realized that the heavy demonic execution was not as simple as he thought. Although he did not understand what a sky demon was, but from the blade technique he could feel the determination of an ant that wanted to contend against the heavens and earth. Even the heavens and earth could not make him submit and could not make him surrender. The transparent ripples silently crumbled into nothingness upon reaching a distance of 10 meters from his body. Asshole! What kind of mess is this? Lu Tianwen was ranked 39 in the Sin Domain's list of powerhouses, and was already a peak martial artist in the entire Sin Domain. Compared to Han Bingning, who had just gained enlightenment on his law surface was mature and perfect, and he was just a step away from gaining enlightenment on a law domain. Chapter 731. Tang Tian pointed to the golden steel gravel in the sack and said, "Try to use your law thread to break the golden steel gravel. Take note, the law thread will cut a small hole on the outside of the gravel. Do not touch the whirlpool inside, it is very dangerous." Ping Xiaoshan gasped for breath and replied honestly, "Yes, master." "That's right, it is because it is difficult that you can train your usage of law threads." Tang Tian became serious, revealing a look of reminiscence and spoke with an experienced tone. "In the past I trained in a type of claw technique, and for the sake of mastering it, I had to grind through an entire 30,000 pieces of steel before I was able to barely master it." Sweat doesn't lie. On the second day Tang Tian opened his eyes. For the entire night he had already swallowed over 100 grains of golden steel gravel's life origin essence. They were slowly nourishing his body, allowing Tang Tian's body to regain its vitality. He calmed himself down, his gaze became resolute, he activated his law thread, and a fine spatial law thread appeared on his finger. To be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Lu Tianwen, they were all important figures that reached the clouds. Tang Tian's face was filled with gratification. Seeing Ping Xiaoshan perspiring profusely, Tang Tian smiled. "Is it very difficult?" When Ming Zhu heard about the golden steel gravel, he immediately flew over, and in a short while he carried the entire sack of golden steel gravel over. "That's right, that is the thunder wind spear Lu Tianwen. Master fought with him for so long, I am afraid that he is already heavily injured, and is only holding on for everyone to scare Lu Tianwen away, but his body is already at the end of its tether. I finally found a good laborer." The origin force in Tang Tian's body was quickly recovering. "Oh my, I can't compete with quality, I can only compete with quantity," Tang Tian thought happily. Tang Tian, who had not had enough, smacked his lips and spat out the golden steel gravel. The exterior of the golden steel gravel was perfectly preserved, and only a small hole could be seen. Tang Tian's mind moved. Who knows, maybe the golden steel gravel will be of use. Ping Xiaoshan replied. After working for 10 hours his mind was sluggish. He stood up and walked towards the room. Tang Tian watched as Lu Tianwen disappeared. He had no strength to chase after him. Although Lu Tianwen's entire body was charred black, but Tang Tian knew that the other party's exhaustion was not as great as his. The power projected by Lu Tianwen's law surface was extremely strong, and as such his actual consumption was not as much as mine. On the contrary, he did not have a law surface and consumed all of his origin force. "Let's hurry up," Tang Tian said softly. Of course, martial artists who ignited their source fire also had their own advantages. No matter how strong the power projected by the law surface was, in the end it was not his own power, it was equivalent to him borrowing power, and naturally it would not be as easy to use. Origin energy, on the other hand, was formed from the power of one's flesh and blood, and was controlled by one's heart. Although he had to extract source power, the self-healing effect of the law of life was indeed very practical and powerful. After swallowing a wisp of life essence, Tang Tian could clearly feel that the wisp of life essence was slowly nourishing his withered body. But the process was extremely slow, but because his own origin force had been exhausted, the life essence did not transform into origin force. Tang Tian laid down leisurely and unknowingly, there was a pile of golden steel gravel shells in front of him. Upon landing, Tang Tian's legs went soft and he was about to fall. A Maori jumped in fright. He immediately supported him up and asked anxiously, "Crazy Tang, are you all right? Following such a boss, it will be hard for me to not have a future." Think about it, after absorbing such a terrifying amount of life essence, what would his body look like? Tang Tian had always been confident that his body was stronger than others, but upon seeing the entire sack of golden steel gravel, the young man was terrified. "I never thought that the master would be so hardworking, most probably only by doing so can he have such strength." Tang Tian remained expressionless. He silently imagined the other party to be an old man, and allowed a Maori to support him into the fort. Ping Xiaoshan followed quietly. He completely did not know what to do. On the other hand, Taixia, who was by the side, was extremely envious. He thought that it would be good if his boss could trouble him a little. It was necessary for him to show his existence. How can a young man with ambition only think about comparing sacks? Seems like we can only compare who is more handsome. I think he has already absorbed so many sacks. And Tang Tian believed that Nyachio was a treacherous man. Even if everyone could only learn one technique, they would be able to unleash its might to its maximum. Who is Lu Tianwen? He was the powerful man ranked 39 on the list of powerhouses in Xin Domain. Such a powerful man actually lost to Tang Tian. If this matter were to spread to Purple Cuckoo City, it would definitely shake the entire city. "Master, I'm done." Enough. Tang Tian immediately nodded his head. He finally understood why the ancestor of the Shui family was able to master the heavy demonic execution. Thinking about what Mingzhu had said, there were no records of the golden steel gravel being sold in the past few years, and most likely, it was all broken and absorbed by him. Watching Ping Xiaoshan leave, Tang Tian's heart was filled with admiration. "We will do it again next time." He stretched his body, although he had not completely recovered, but his origin force had recovered by 10%. The most difficult period is over and it will be easier to recover later on. Thinking about Lu Tianwen's last attack, Tang Tian was sure that the other party would not be able to recover so easily. Ping Xiaoshan's heart became even sadder. He felt that he had guessed correctly. The heavens are jealous of heroes. Master is such a hero, his fate is truly unfair. Even at such a time, Master did not forget his promise to me. He was moved and hurt at the same time. Tears flowed out uncontrollably. After placing Tang Tian down, a Maori chased everyone out, leaving Ping Xiaoshan alone. Looking at the sack of golden steel gravel in front of him, Tang Tian was 100% sure that Ping Xiaoshan definitely used his life origin essence to create it. Ping Xiaoshan was at a loss. What do I need to do? It's nothing, I'm just exhausted. Tang Tian laughed bitterly. He did not even have the strength to move a finger. The reason why the injuries on his body had healed was because of life laws, but it was not what Lu Tianwen had guessed. It was from training, but from absorbing life origin essence. The life laws had allowed his injuries to heal, but it had also sucked out the remaining 30% of origin force in his body. Ping Xiaoshan's mind was in a mess. Sorrow welled up in his heart. He spoke with a trembling voice. "Master, you better recuperate. When you are healed, you can slowly teach Xiaoshan." After spending close to 10 minutes, he finally succeeded. But thinking about the group of beast-like men rushing forward and unleashing Blade Devil transformation, at the same time, Tang Tian could not help but tremble. I reckon that the ancestor of the Shui family who created the heavy demonic execution will never think that there would be such a group of people with such powerful bodies. Ping Xiaoshan was extremely focused. He tirelessly cut the golden steel gravel and his speed slowly increased. Tang Tian patted the numb Ping Xiaoshan. "Xiaoshan, this special training will end here. Go and rest well." Under Tang Tian's dumbstruck gaze, Mingzhu threw the sack on the ground with a look of concern. "Is it enough? We have not sold the golden steel gravel for the past few years. They are all here. If it is not enough, I can find the people who bought it in the past and see if I can buy some back. Ping Xiaoshan raised his head, his eyes revealing a look of joy. Master, are you going to teach me stealth techniques? Tang Tian reckoned that with a Maori's physical strength, he would be able to learn 2 techniques, while the rest could only learn 1. Ping Xiaoshan's usage of law threads was far more outstanding than Tang Tian, but he had never used law threads before and had never done such meticulous work. The golden steel gravel itself was small, and the whirlpools inside were even smaller. To cut a small hole in the golden steel gravel without touching the whirlpools was extremely difficult. I need to give them big blades. When Tang Tian returned to the castle, he received the treatment of a hero. As expected, Master's training method is not ordinary. There must be some profound secret hidden within. Tang Tian received the golden steel gravel and nodded his head in satisfaction. He threw it into his mouth, and the life origin essence flowed out and was absorbed into his mouth. His current body was like a dried-up riverbed, and the life origin essence quickly permeated into his body. Just like Tai Xie, Tang Tian and Lu Tianwen's battle had shocked Ping Xiaoshan. He had thought that Ghost Face Mask was powerful, but he had never thought that Ghost Face Mask would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the top-grade martial artists in the legends. It was a height that he could never imagine. It was too terrifying. The law surface was like a replenishment base. It could be used to replenish one's energy endlessly. And that was why in Sin Domain martial artists that trained in laws far outnumbered martial artists that ignited their primordial fire origin. He followed Tang Tian, and his greatest wish was to perfect his Ping family stealth techniques, to transform it from a stealth technique into an inheritance that could be used for offense and defense. The battle between Master and Benson made him see hope, and after the battle on the street, it made him see the power of spatial law threads. It was truly a killing weapon. When he heard that Tang Tian wanted to trouble him, he was completely stupefied. Tang Tian realized that as long as the law threads did not touch the vortex inside the golden steel gravel, there would be no problem. Between the vortex and the gravel there was a small gap. Mingzhu, prepare some golden steel gravel. Tang Tian's eyes turned black. He never thought that he would actually overdraft himself to such an extent. He could only speak to Ping Xiaoshan. Xiaoshan, I will have to trouble you this time. Tai Xie looked at Tang Tian with reverence. With that he took out another golden steel gravel and focused on cutting the gravel. Tang Tian was curious why Ping Xiaoshan's eyes were filled with tears. But I should teach a Maori and the rest the heavy demonic execution as soon as possible. When he removed the law threads he realized that he was extremely tired. Ping Xiaoshan wiped away his tears. I need to do my best and not disappoint Master. Ping Xiaoshan sincerely took out a golden steel gravel from his sack. He took a deep breath and carefully held onto the golden steel gravel with his right hand, while his other hand used the law threads to carefully cut the golden steel gravel. That's right. Tang Tian said seriously, his expression solemn. Ping Xiaoshan, who was greatly encouraged, immediately sat up straight and said resolutely, Master is right. Xiaoshan will definitely remember it. Ping Xiaoshan's heart suddenly jumped. Could it be that Master is dying? Is he going to pass down the inheritance to me before he dies? If not, why would Master impart it to me at such a weak time? Seeing the cautious Ping Xiaoshan in front of him, Tang Tian coughed lightly. Xiaoshan, let me see your law threads. He had already decided when everyone's bodies were tempered to the point where they could absorb life origin essence, he would start a large-scale special training. He was suddenly filled with anticipation for Lu Tianwen's return. When I break the gravel, I cannot touch the vortex, Ping Xiaoshan reminded himself repeatedly. Chapter 732. Upon hearing that the board guillotine blade was related to fighting against Lu Tianwen, Mingzhu immediately said, I will go now. The Saint Realm shook. Dealing with a small pirate like Mei Qianxiu not only was it strenuous, but it also made Bing, who was used to big scenes, lose interest. Only the honorable Martial Continent's southern punitive army could make him excited. Bing roused himself. At least the upcoming battle could make him interested. The few continents that bordered the Honorable Martial Continent would even invite the commanding officers of the Honorable Martial Continent's encampment, which had a long history. The Honorable Martial Continent's tyrannical strength. The surrounding pirates were forbidden, and they were bordered by the Honorable Martial Continent. The profits from their businesses were plentiful, and to form a good relationship with the Honorable Martial Continent was something they had to do. Both sides maintained a good cooperative relationship in private. In the eyes of these continent lords, both sides had common interests, and they also had a share of the profits from the trade. A guillotine it is, Tang Tian said without hesitation. Lu Tianwen frowned. He knew that his brother had always been scheming to obtain the Shui residence, and was willing to take out 200 prisoners to exchange for the Shui residence, which made Lu Tianwen feel strange. What did he think the Shui residence had that was worth attacking? Money? The Lu family was still short of money? Stop joking. This was the largest army in the history of the sacred region. Mingzhu could not help but turn his head to look at the strong men training with all their might. Thinking about the broad guillotine blade that was as tall as a person, he immediately quivered and immediately said, "Master, if you need it, the forging of the blade is extremely simple. There is enough mystical iron in the castle and black sand, we can forge it immediately." In the valley, Lu Tianwen was sure that he had underestimated his enemy. "We've prepared one for everyone," Mingzhu continued. "We have also found some of the blades that Master mentioned. Master, please take a look and see if they are suitable." He had been fooled by the other party's expertise in fist techniques. When the other party had first used a saber, he had thought that it was just a smokescreen. What a treacherous villain. Lu Tianwen clenched his teeth. Being proficient in fist techniques is just a trap set up by him. The three armies advanced in three different directions. They were unstoppable and unstoppable. I wonder where this guy is fooling around again. Can he have any sense of responsibility after leaving such a mess to me? As a leader, how could you be so preposterous? I really don't know how to read people properly, and I've brought trouble upon myself. This time he must not be fooled again. In front of him, all the generals stood solemnly. No one made a sound. They were filled with reverence towards Bing. Furthermore, they knew that although Bing was grumbling, but the relationship between him and Tang Tian was extremely deep. Whoever wanted to run out at this time would be courting death. Within Echo Hill Castle, Mo Xian has arrived at the front lines of the North Dragon continent, Qiu Suhua has arrived at the front lines of the small Chongshan continent, and Go Qing Wendao has arrived at the Demon continent. The adjutant in charge of intelligence spoke. Just yesterday the Honorable Martial Continent made a statement because of the conflict between the Shang continent and the Honorable Martial Continent. They are only going through the Shang continent and all the continents along the way. If anyone wants to pass through, they will not offend them. He had been too careless. Lu Tianwen's attention turned back to Ghost Face Mask Man, after thinking about it. Although he was strange, but his strength was still far from mine. Someone who has not even gained enlightenment on a law surface, even if he ignites his primordial fire origin, he is still a bore. For the Shui family to rely on Ghost Face Mask, the inheritance definitely originated from the Shui family. In the past, the Shui family's absolute technique had shaken the entire Xin domain, but it was a pity that the later generations were not up to expectations, and slowly faded from everyone's eyes. Tang Tian's last blade was extremely strange. It actually entered his own spear aura and exploded. That's right, the Shui family's most famous inheritance, the heavy demonic execution. In the banquet, the continent lords and the generals of the Honorable Martial Army were still chatting about whether or not there would be a war, and the generals laughed and explained that it was only for the internal rebellion of the Honorable Martial Continent, causing the continent lords to be enlightened. Can I change the heavy demonic execution into a hand blade? As for the golden steel threads, although it was also a good thing, but they could be bought from the market. Heavy demonic execution. Tang Tian waved his broad guillotine blade, but still threw it down. A Maori and the rest were suitable, but he was not. He was still not used to the blade in his hands and suddenly thought of a brazen idea. Compressing their physical strength to the limit, and using laws to temper their bodies, the techniques that Tang Tian had imparted to them were executed to the letter. The Honorable Martial Tiger General's direct subordinate army numbered 10,000, the famous General Army numbered 8,000, the Standard Honorable Martial Army numbered 5,000. Every army had a total of 110,000 men. Adding on the support personnel, the number would reach a terrifying 150,000, and the total number would reach 450,000. Tang Tian's eyes lit up. I want that. In the midst of a life of luxury and debauchery, the Southern Punitive Army braved the rain, like an unstoppable flood. Under the guidance of disguised merchant groups, they surged into the few continents. The Xin domain's blade techniques are so powerful, how can I not have heard of them before? Under Qiu Suhua's command, other than the Qiuhua army Ziche Jiajing Wei Yu Feng Yun Man, the three famous generals each led their own armies. Bing stood up with an expressionless face. Now, I will give out the following orders to the various armies. He swept his gaze across the generals. All of their faces were still filled with immaturity. He knew that the scale of the war would allow them to grow quickly. They were all seeds that he had carefully selected, and all of them had outstanding potential. Tang Tian thought about the Null Division. If every single one of them were to wield such a tyrannical broad guillotine blade, how majestic would that be? Just thinking about it made him excited. So few. Tang Tian frowned. I still want everyone to have one. All of them had tensed up muscles, perspiration covered their bronze skin, all of them looked as though they were cast in bronze, and would occasionally release loud roars. When the ladies of the Shui family passed by, all of them could not bear to look away. They had never seen such masculine beauty before. The Honorable Martial Continent's 5 great generals, other than Mu Zhixia who was guarding the Wei Yiguan continent, Jiaya who was guarding the center, Missouri Xin, Qiu Suhua and Goqing Wendao, the 3 great generals were all out. Bing's finger that was holding onto his cigarette stopped. He squeezed out 2 words from his teeth. Seeking death. A man with a big blade. The golden steel clothes that we produce have outstanding defensive capabilities, and its most powerful point is that it is able to evenly distribute the power that it can withstand. Ming Zhu's tone was filled with pride. The golden steel clothes was the Shui family's most famous product, and was renowned throughout the Xin domain. This is the broad guillotine blade. Ming Zhu introduced. It is currently the largest blade in use. It weighs 900 kilograms and has no sharpening edge. This blade no longer needs sharpening. It is made from black iron and with the addition of black sand, it is extremely sturdy. But it has a high requirement for power. Yes, yes, yes. Tang Tian nodded his head. I want this, the faster the better. Can we finish it before Lu Tianwen comes again? The Honorable Martial Continent's southern expedition was too sudden, and even the higher-ups of the Honorable Martial Continent had made the decision at the last minute. Thus the various continents of the southern region were not prepared at all. Although the mobilization of all sorts of resources and personnel made people feel as though a storm was brewing, but the majority of the continents of the southern region did not believe that the Honorable Martial Continent would invade. A Maori and the rest trained in the heavy demonic execution with all their might. Compared to law threads, the violent slashes were more to their liking. Under Goqing Wendao's command, other than the Skyhook Army, Cliff, Ken and Zeke, the 3 famous generals were all sent out, leading their own armies. Other than that, every army had 15 standard honorable martial armies, all led by silver-grade military generals with 10 years of experience. Where is the Honorable Martial Continent's army? Could it be that brother's intention is the heavy demonic execution? Lu Tianwen, who had experienced the might of the heavy demonic execution, felt that it was possible. I am truly looking forward to it. In that moment the world became silent. TSK, this time we have become public enemies. Bing smacked his lips and said. The Shaman Ji roasted pig trotters disappeared from the menu, causing the various armies to wail. With that he flew away. Tang Tian glanced around and was immediately attracted to a blade the size of a door. He walked over and picked it up. Thinking about the female swordsman that he fought with previously, her sword technique was extremely profound, and was obviously not a Xin domain sword technique. But Tang Tian's 3 blades made Lu Tianwen 100% sure that it was a Xin domain blade technique. Suddenly, Lu Tianwen thought about a blade technique that had disappeared for a long time, the heavy demonic execution. Ming Zhu was startled. After a while he stuttered, Master, there are only 2 of these blades. The news of the war erupting only spread to the world 3 days later. Every time they slashed, they would open their eyes wide in anger, using all of their strength. Everyone knew that Bing was angry and all of them trembled. He did not return to Purple Cuckoo City. If his nephew were to see his charred appearance, he would feel ashamed. After finding a mountain call, he started to recuperate. In the past few days he had been reflecting on the battle. Speaking of Wu Ma Tian, it was Aya who ran to Bing to ask for him, and facing Aya's insistence, Bing thought about it and agreed. From then on, Wu Ma Tian became a member of the Skull Unit, but what no one expected was that Aya immediately promoted him to vice commander. The heavy demonic execution consumed a lot of energy, and thinking about it, Ghostface Mask actually did not chase after him, which meant that he was completely exhausted. Lu Tianwen was extremely regretful. He looked to be in a difficult situation at that time, but in truth his injuries were not heavy. If he had continued to attack, he would have pierced through Ghostface Mask's spear. Lu Tianwen clenched his teeth and swore in his heart. Wu Ma Tian felt uncomfortable. It was his first time participating in such a high-standard military conference. Aya, who was beside him, stood extremely straight, her eyes looking down. Yes, yesterday there were 7 families that announced that they were leaving the Southern Alliance. When Goqing Wendao broke through the Dark Sand continent, he met with intense resistance and suffered heavy losses. Goqing Wendao was enraged and ordered for a massacre. No one was spared. Wu Ma Tian became the fastest rising general, causing countless people to be jealous. The various continents of the southern region were in chaos. The broad guillotine blade was definitely a blade that was rarely used, and the Shui family had only prepared 2 of them for display. All of the generals present revealed looks of indignation. Ming Zhu brought Tang Tian to the weapon rack and all sorts of blades were placed on it. The heavy demonic execution was the inheritance of the Shui family, and blades were naturally the most common weapon in the Shui family. Bing grumbled. He spat out a smoke ring and grumbled. He had a special connection with Tang Tian, and knew that Tang Tian was not dead, so he was not anxious. As long as he was not dead, it was fine. As for anything else, what more could he ask for? That guy has always been unreliable. Under Mo Xian's command, other than Mo Xian's army, Yuan Wei, Shui Dong Lu Guang, the 3 great generals led the 3 big armies. He naturally understood the value of the golden steel clothes. It was strong when gathering power and weak when dispersed. If it was able to disperse the enemy's attacks, it would definitely be a life-saving item. In the top 50 of the list of powerhouses, only one person had ignited his primordial fire origin. Chapter 733. Lu Tianwen's spear seemed to have landed under Ghostface Mask's blade, causing Ghostface Mask's blade to shatter, while Lu Tianwen's spear aura suddenly inflated like a balloon. Boom! It exploded. Lu Tianwen was immediately blasted black, while half of Ghostface Mask's body was badly mutilated. Do you know what I saw? I can see Ghostface Mask's wounds healing and growing. Su Ye's face changed. He placed his hand on Su Anzhong's forehead, and a thread of life chi entered Su Anzhong's body. After a moment he let out a sigh of relief. Su Anzhong was fine. Spitting out this mouthful of blood was far better than not spitting it out. At this moment, Su Anzhong's voice was no longer trembling. He stood up with an indescribable flush of excitement on his face. His voice was also filled with excitement. That slash was from the bottom up, as if it was going to split the sky. Lu Tianwen's reaction was extremely fast. His second spear was also extremely ferocious. Like a whirlpool, the blade and spear clashed. This time, Ghostface Mask did not have it easy either. He was sent flying back. Lu Tianwen was in an even worse state. He was directly nailed into the mountain. Law of Life. Su Yi was shocked. His face was overwhelmed with shock. He trained in life and death laws. How could he be unfamiliar with life laws? He was pondering on how to use the heavy demonic execution with his hand blade. The Echo Hill Castle was bustling with activity. The heavy demonic execution was not as simple as he thought it to be. Even the descendants of the Shui clan had lost the inheritance of this absolute art. It seemed simple. Tang Tian could also imitate the last 2 moves, and the power was not small either. However, Tang Tian knew that it was still far from the true power of these 2 moves. Sweat doesn't lie. The body is just that honest. Qi La, water was poured onto the blade and the blood-stained blade dimmed. Hot mist surged. Tang Tian was full of confidence as he practiced over and over again. Geniuses learned with their brains, but godlike youngsters always learned with their muscles. Was this the problem of the bowl being too big and not being able to hold enough rice? Su Yi remained silent. What did it mean to sacrifice oneself? What was the sky demon faceless? He just couldn't figure it out. Sure enough, happiness came from comparison. That's right, it's the law of life, huh? 16 moves? Is it really Lu Tianwen? However, Tang Tian didn't want to waste the space of transformation. With the space of transformation, it meant that there was still room for improvement. A battle between experts was often decided by a thin line. During this seclusion, his strength had taken a qualitative leap. Even though he looked calm on the surface, his heart was filled with unprecedented confidence. He could now clearly see the back of his elder brother, who used to be out of reach in his heart. Although it was a little bitter, fortunately, a group of delicate little girls used a large cart to push a cart full of guillotine blades to the training ground. They could confidently say, "We painstakingly forged these, you can't lose." After a long while, Suyi asked with difficulty, "And then?" Su Anzhong sat down, grabbed the food on the table and wolfed it down. For the past few days he had been guarding outside the city like a cat in the mountains, just to keep an eye on the Echo Hill Castle. If not for him cultivating bitterly, he would not have been able to endure it. After a long time, the shock in his heart gradually calmed down, and he couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Of course Tang Tian wasn't that vulgar. Only Chia understood the loneliness of a young man. The scarlet molten iron was poured out from the furnace, and flowed through the channels that had long been dug into the molds. Although it lacked the sharpness of a weapon, but his fists and palms were more flexible, and Tang Tian felt that his own body was much stronger than any ordinary weapon. This time Lu Tianwen was completely enraged. He rushed out, his entire body floating with wind and thunder. There were many of them. His spear tip released circle after circle of ripples, sweeping all of the wind and thunder inside, and then he thrust it out. Ghost face mask raised his blade and his aura became very strange. The last transformation of a real blade was at the wrist, while the last transformation of a hand blade was at the fingers. That also meant that using a real blade to unleash the heavy demonic execution was just right. And using a hand blade to unleash the heavy demonic execution, there was still room for transformation. That was why the power of his blade was able to enter Lu Tianwen's spear aura and explode. That's what I saw. After testing it out a few times, Tang Tian felt that it was possible. Finger techniques, palm techniques, leg techniques, joint techniques, they were all martial techniques that he was proficient in. Su Anzhong had already digested the shock in his heart. It was Tang Tian's first time encountering such a situation. There was so much room for transformation, causing him to be at a loss. He gulped down a mouthful of water and stopped for a moment, then said, "Thunder Wind Spear Lu Tianwen, I am definitely not wrong. That Thunder Wind Spear is truly destructive. I do not dare to get close and can only watch from afar. He is ranked 39 on the list of powerhouses, truly powerful." After being silent for a full 5 minutes, Su Anzhong's hoarse voice came out. Lu Tianwen was sent flying. The hand blade was more suitable to unleash the heavy demonic execution than a real blade, but only Tang Tian could use it like that because his physical body was extremely tyrannical. His palms were able to use the origin force in his entire body. If it was any other person using the hand blade, their palms would explode like a balloon, exploding into pieces. Tang Tian was extremely familiar with the hand blade in the past. There was an old man who said that he was suitable to become a close-quarters combat expert, although he had not achieved it yet, but his close-quarters combat abilities were truly stronger. Seems like a lot of things have to be replanned. She took more than 10 moves from Lu Tianwen? Su Ye's expression was strange. Su Anzhong's fingers that were on his knees were trembling, but he did not notice it. After a long while, Su Yi then spoke up. "You said that was Lu Tianwen? Why is that?" He was able to use Devil Eye Execution because he had experienced the struggle and entanglement of being at a loss, and it was the resonance of his mental state that allowed the origin force in his body to reach a miraculous equilibrium, like the feeling of enlightenment after the confusion, the clear sky after the rain, or the sunlight after the fog. Yes. Su Anzhong replied vaguely. He was enjoying his elder brother's shock. In his memories, his elder brother was always extremely intelligent, and one could never hope to see any surprise or shock on his elder brother's face, only a faint smile and unfathomable profoundness as well as a profound meaning. Su Yi was overwhelmed with shock. At that moment, Su Anzhong actually understood his elder brother's feelings. That's right, any random person can block Lu Tianwen's 14 moves. That is truly hard to accept. Tang Tian was completely oblivious to everything else. "Tell me in detail." Su Ye's current expression was extremely solemn, as though his entire family was about to be annihilated. Su Ye's expression could no longer be described as weird. Su Anzhong looked as though he had gone mad. His face flushed red and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He fell to the ground, his face as white as paper. Tang Tian did not know how to describe it, but he could feel the resonance between his origin force and his mental state, and that was the true brilliance of the heavy demonic execution. The group of ferocious men had never received such treatment before, and the flirtatious voices of the little pixies immediately caused them to have goosebumps. Their fighting intense soared to the point that their bodies were about to release flames. All of them held onto their door-sized guillotine blades and patted their chests, which sounded like metal clashing against metal. Extremely tyrannical, they spoke arrogant words about being dismembered by 5 horses, chopped into 8 pieces, beaten into a pile of shit. Their morale was extremely high. Su Yi did not make a sound. He saw Su Zhong's struggle and became even more shocked. Su Yi was startled. He opened his eyes wide. Lu Tianwen was sent flying? But there was a huge difference between a hand blade and a blade. After activating it a few times, he was able to completely use the hand blade, but Tang Tian felt that it was slightly awkward. When Su Zhong said the word truly ferocious, he gritted his teeth. How is that possible? That's right. Until he witnessed the battle between the 2 abnormal humans, all of his confidence was instantly destroyed and turned into ashes. He initially thought that his sword heart was like steel, but now he could only laugh bitterly. So when he saw his elder brother's shocked face, he immediately felt that his broken sword heart had recovered a bit. Mingzhu rolled up her sleeves. Her face was covered in soot. The entire residence was filled with women, and they were helpless to do anything about it. Everyone knew that it was a matter of life and death. All of the delicate young ladies did not make a sound, and immersed themselves in their work. Yes. Su Zhong took a deep breath and continued, directly fly out. Ghostface Mask's figure only moved back a bit. He frantically rushed out, not to fly but to rush. It was a very strange footwork. He compressed the air beneath his feet into an inverted bowl shape, and then stepped on it, borrowing the momentum to rush forward. Fast. So fast that no one could see it clearly. He rushed to Lu Tianwen and slashed out a second time. The battle had given him too many shocks, regardless of whether it was Lu Tianwen or Ghostface Mask. Their strength far surpassed his. After that, Ghostface Mask went up. Su Zhong recalled the scene from that day and his voice started to tremble. He raised his blade. At that time I felt that it was strange because Ghostface Mask had never used a blade before. He suddenly appeared beside Han Bingning and took over Han Bingning and slashed at Lu Tianwen's spearhead. With that they were evenly matched and Ghostface Mask threw Han Bingning back. Suddenly he retreated and appeared in front of Lu Tianwen and slashed. That blade was very strange. It was held up firmly without any accumulation of power and fell down like a guillotine. Su Yi listened carefully. He could picture the scene of the battle in his mind, and Su Zhong's trembling voice made him feel an indescribable fear and nervousness. But that battle was actually able to cause an expert like Zhong to develop a heart demon. Su Zhong thought about it. That's right, if Lu Tianwen wanted to wipe out someone's family, other than the Qin family, no one else in Purple Cuckoo City will be able to escape. Su Zhong thought about Han Bingning and could not help but feel admiration for her. Under such pressure she was still able to persevere for so long. Although she was a lady, but she had the heart of a swordsman. Tang Tian fell into deep thought and very quickly found the crux of the problem, the last change. Su Zhong spoke quickly, his face revealing a bewitching red flush, his hands and feet dancing, his expression somewhat crazy. When Lu Tianwen appeared he did not hide anything and directly attacked the Echo Hill Castle. The first person to stop him was Han Bingning. Han Bingning was probably in his hands and after 10 over moves she was injured. There is no need to polish, there is no need to sharpen it, seize the time and do it again. He had not comprehended the true meaning of heavy demonic execution, sacrificial execution, and demonic phaseless execution. He realized that starting from devil eye execution onwards, every slash was no longer just a technique. It required the coordination of the mind. That's right. Su Zhong squinted his eyes and thought about it, then said with certainty, 16 moves. Su Yi was dumbstruck. He was directly nailed into the mountain. Su Zhong stopped. He did not say a word, only the veins on his forehead and the back of his hands occasionally popped out, showing the agitation in his heart. He was trying his best to control his emotions. He was trying to get rid of the shadow of the battle. Luckily it is the simplest forging, if not, Mingzhu and the rest will not have the ability to do so. The news gave him a huge shock to the point that he was unable to digest it. Chapter 734. Everyone was surprised. From where they were, the Echo Hill Castle was just a small black dot in their vision. This is the place. Su Zhong, who had been silent all this while, suddenly opened his mouth. His face was pale but he was still full of energy. After experiencing the trial of the heart demons, although his internal injuries were not light, His foundation was not damaged. As long as he could defeat his inner demons, his strength would transform once again. The group walked outside the city. No one dared to fly. Instead, they carefully walked along the mountain path. If Lu Tianwen were to see it, everyone would die in one shot and they would not even have a place to cry out for help. The green wind and lightning around Lu Tianwen's body flashed, and he disappeared into the sky. The door to the training room opened. One by one, strong figures covered in sweat stood up straight, carrying their broad guillotine blades on their shoulders. Their faces were filled with fighting spirit. Everyone agreed in their hearts. Regardless of whether Ghost Face Mask won or lost, Benson had profited. We will do our own things. Mingzhu remained calm as though she was not affected at all. Only her fingers that were tightly gripping her sleeves revealed the same worry in her heart. His Excellency had been in his room for 3 whole days. It's just a few days of work, it won't take up too much of everyone's time. Seeing is believing. Ziyi said. In the corner, Niechio, who was seated cross-legged, suddenly said. Then let's end this battle before the rainbow stream appears. Niechio's voice was no longer as gentle as usual, but had become extremely cold. An expert on the list of combat power? How exciting! Everyone's expression changed as they looked at the 2 little girls. The wounds on his body had long since healed, but he wasn't in a hurry to attack Shadow Mountain Castle. Instead, he was resting his mind. This was where he was experienced. He knew that it was a great taboo to rush to the door and attack. He had spent a few days nurturing his essence, qi and spirit. Today his essence, qi and spirit were all at their peak. Mingzhu was in a daze. The fate of the Shui family was currently tied to Master Ghost Face Mask. Adjust your breathing before the battle. I've fought him before. No one can become so strong in such a short period of time. Black Benson remained expressionless. His tone was low and powerful and had a convincing feel to it. His words were equally convincing. Everyone was a little dumbfounded. The 2 energetic girls with crisp voices made it impossible for anyone to associate them with the more Iron Guard. I don't believe it either, Victor agreed. Everyone quickly entered their battle positions. The familiar training process made him feel like he had returned to the past. The sound of the wind that filled the sky disappeared. He withdrew his technique and stood upright. His face was covered with beads of sweat and his eyes were like stars. Behind the door, everyone's breathing suddenly stopped. This was the place where he had watched the previous battle. Su Anzhong said solemnly, if we get any closer they will notice. I don't believe it. In the corner, the hair on Niechio's forehead moved without any wind. The Null Division members who were training bitterly stopped and did not make a sound. Tang Tian's expression was solemn, and his whole body emitted a piercingly cold battle intent. He passed through the training ground and walked out of the stone castle. He stepped onto the stone wall and sat down cross-legged, closing his eyes to rest. She had a tall and slender figure, a neat battle suit, an exquisite oval face, a ponytail and a pair of big smiling eyes. The 2 of them looked exactly the same and it was impossible to tell them apart. It was Lu Tianwen, not anyone else. He was ranked 39 on the list of powerhouses. In other words, to be ranked 39 in the entire Sin domain. What kind of existence was that? Do not think that they were all famous people in Purple Cuckoo City, but in front of Lu Tianwen they were all trash. Everyone's faces changed. Was that the strength of a martial artist on the list of powerhouses? Isn't that a bit too far? Victor muttered. Tang Tian looked as though he was possessed. Using his hand blades again and again, he trained in the heavy demonic execution. In the spacious and dim training ground, only Tang Tian's figure was there. A faint light aura shone down from above, landing on the figure who was perspiring profusely. Black Benson said expressionlessly. Greetings, seniors. The 2 young ladies greeted at the same time. Now we have to see if Ghost Face Mask can survive Lu Tianwen's attacks. Dismantling, assembling, training. He did not know how many times he had trained. It had been a long time since he had trained for so long. The Null Division members who were perspiring profusely, all of their eyes exploded with light auras. The fighting intent in their bodies quietly ignited. Tang Tian's actions gave them a signal. Master is ready. Her mood became joyous. Even Su Yi revealed a rarely seen look of vexation. To any family they would always spare no effort in grooming their youths. I have placed too much emphasis on the family's benefits. Why didn't I think of that? In the violent gale, A figure that was as stable as a boulder passed through the door and entered everyone's eyes. Su Yi, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly spoke out, causing everyone to immediately become alert and look over. But very quickly everyone reacted, the big black man is still the most astute. That's right, why didn't I think of that? Everyone immediately revealed looks of regret. A battle between martial artists of Lu Tianwen's level was something that could only be chanced upon, and to be able to personally witness it, it would definitely be beneficial for them in the future. He looked up at the sky, the rainbow stream was fast approaching. The life origin essence that he had absorbed previously was completely stimulated. The endless origin force gave him an endless amount of strength. The others did not say anything, all of them had their own thoughts. Enter the battle position. Everyone's mood immediately became bad. Tang Tian walked forward slowly without saying a word. Now we can only wait. Su Yi smiled, although the Roland family had snatched first, but he had more chips in his hands. As long as he had the null division prisoners, he had the qualifications to bet. Benson said with an expressionless face, "You better not provoke them, they just passed the death-smelting trial." "Yes, let them see the world." Benson remained expressionless. "Guys, get ready for battle." Amauri grinned. Victor, on the other hand, had a bitter taste in his mouth. The elders in his family were a bunch of idiots. If Ghostface Mask was killed by Lu Tianwen, it would be fine, but if not? The previous setback was mostly because he had underestimated his opponent. This time, no matter what, he would not underestimate his opponent. Wherever the azure lightning flashed, the sky seemed to boil. The sound of rolling thunder came from afar, as if a raging tide was sweeping over from afar. Instead, she was praying that Ghostface Mask did not die. It was certain that he could not beat Lu Tianwen, but as long as he could survive, he would definitely have the qualifications to enter the list of powerhouses. On the stone wall, Tang Tian opened his eyes. How many days are we going to stand guard in the wilderness? Su, who had been acting as if he hadn't heard them all this time, suddenly spoke. Sweat doesn't lie. Tang Tian always remembered it. He didn't know many principles, but he never dared to forget this one. I am Xiao Yu. I am Xiao Yi. Ghostface Mask's strength had to be re-evaluated. On the stone tiles on the ground, there were many horizontal lines marked with cinnabar. It was Niechio's meticulously calculated battle positions. Every battle position was determined after repeated measurements and calculations. The sweat gradually dried. Their bronze-colored skin was like metal. The 64 figures in the field remained motionless, like 64 bronze statues. Niechio, who was hidden in the shadows, was like an ancient monk meditating. His gray pupils were dim and without light. If not for the occasional shouts coming from inside, they would have rushed in long ago. A favor from a ranker on the list of powerhouses was definitely the most successful investment the Roland clan had made in all these years. She couldn't help but glance at Victor. She thought to herself, this dead man is quite knowledgeable. He can still think of me at such a critical moment. Is Master Ghostface Mask all right? Xiao Yao was filled with worry. Master has not moved for a few days. Lu Tianwen is here. We'll know in 2 days. Su Yi had already calmed down from the shock yesterday and regained his usual indifference. Lu Tianwen has suffered a huge loss and will not let it go. Such might cause everyone to be overwhelmed with shock. Inside the valley, Lu Tianwen slowly opened his eyes. At that moment, there was no trace of ruthlessness or insanity in his eyes, only calmness. Is that Lu Tianwen? Is that an expert on the list of powerhouses? Victor glanced at the twin young ladies beside Benson and clicked his tongue in wonder. Old Black, your eyesight is not bad. Where did you find these 2 beautiful sisters? Amauri and the rest held onto their broad guillotine blades. All of them closed their eyes and meditated. Their orderly and long breaths converged into one, filling the room like the wind. In the entire Purple Cuckoo City, only Qingjin could be on the list of powerhouses. I don't know. Su Yi replied honestly. No one knows when Lu Tianwen will recover and when he will come back. Perspiration flowed down his cheeks, his entire body looked as though he was pulled out from the water. The mist around him was faintly discernible in the faint light. He was extremely focused. For 3 consecutive days and nights he had trained in heavy demonic execution countless of times. Qingjin's ambition caused the other families to feel the immense pressure. The Teopiot family was willing to rely on them, but the other families were not. Under the immense pressure, everyone was looking for variables. A Maori stood up, he grabbed the broad guillotine blade and placed it on his shoulder. Whoosh, the grey tiny null flames soared from the blade's body, and extended along the gigantic blade's body. Echo Hill Castle. It was definitely not a pleasant thing to be in the wilderness, the rainbow flow, fierce beasts etc. All sorts of dangers with no way to bathe to the ladies unless it was absolutely necessary. No one was willing to be in the wilderness. And from what Zhou Yi said, it was not just for a day. This generation of steel guards. Roland, Zhou could not help but ask. After living in their hometown for so many years, they naturally knew of the death trials. It was the steel guard's most cruel trial. Roland's face became ugly, but she did not say a word. She knew the importance of the matter. Thinking about her bet, she became happy again. Ghostface Mask was able to fight against Lu Tianwen. As long as Ghostface Mask did not die, the favor was worth a city to the Roland family. No one believed that Ghostface Mask was actually able to fight against such a ferocious man. Mingzhu covered her mouth, her face filled with shock. She had never seen a group of people actually breathing in unison. In that moment, the group of people in front of her seemed to have transformed into a gigantic fierce beast that was conserving its strength. A green figure shot through the air like lightning whistling through the air. "Please take care of me," the two of them said at the same time. He stood up, grabbed onto the Thunder Wind spear beside him and slowly walked out of the valley. In his heart he had already placed Ghostface Mask and Tang Tian on the same level as him. He was waiting for Lu Tianwen. Chapter 735. But Lu Tianwen was in a frenzy. He wanted to kill Ghostface Mask. He wanted to destroy all of them. Lu Tianwen never thought that Tang Tian would actually be able to change his technique at such a time. All of his attention was focused on the tip of his spear. Caught off guard, he felt a strong force coming from beneath his feet, causing his vision to blur. Before he could react, he was pushed into the sky by the shockwave. He had been bitterly holding on until now. One after another, the wind and lightning balls followed him and floated towards the Echo Hill Castle. They took half a step forward with their left legs at the same time, lowering their center of gravity. The broad guillotine blades rested on their shoulders, their right palms grasping the hilt of the blades firmly, their bodies leaning forward. Everyone's face was drained of blood. He had never seen the wind and thunder crystal spear before, but the transparent spear tip gave him goosebumps. Tang Tian never thought that Lu Tianwen would actually be so crazy and disregard everything. However, there was no point in thinking about that now. An extremely dazzling spear aura lit up in front of him, and fiercely collided with his hand blade, severing the heavens. Buzz. He didn't want to think about any techniques or moves. He just wanted to kill them all. Completely humiliated. He had actually been humiliated. The long spear was like a greedy and thirsty beast, constantly devouring the wind and lightning balls. The green light around his body became more and more intense, so intense that even his face and figure could not be seen clearly. Tang Tian came to a realization. It was far better to keep a variation than to use it directly. One more change meant one more leeway, one more choice. In a fierce battle, one more choice and leeway meant one more chance of winning, just like what happened just now. None of you can escape. Blade Devil Transformation. What a pity. Zhou Yi muttered, a trace of fear surfaced in his eyes. Lu Tianwen laughed maniacally. His mind was no longer clear. He did not care about the consequences of projecting power from his law surface. The power had already exceeded the limit that he could control. He could not see the ghost faces clearly, but he did not care. They were just like ants. Mingzhu was stunned. Absolutely unforgivable. Boom. Everyone raised their heads and stared at the back of the figure outside the gate. Whoosh, regiment after regiment of grey tiny null flames soared from the blade and enveloped the blade. Over and over again he was toyed with and humiliated. And when more than 100 of such balls of wind and lightning appeared at the same time, it was no longer fear. They didn't even have the slightest thought to resist. Zhou Yi and the rest who were watching from afar were all pale white. They had imagined how strong Lu Tianwen was, but they never expected that the martial artist on the list of powerhouses was much stronger than what they had imagined. Lu Tianwen's hair floated up. The wind and thunder around him transformed into balls of wind and thunder. The wind lightning ball was about the size of a bamboo basket. It flashed with dazzling azure lightning and emitted a terrifying aura. Tang Tian slowly pulled back his fist. He had never completely executed the godly fist before. The vast sea of transformation imprints frantically flashed past his heart. The sky was filled with smoke and clouds, the flickering light and passing shadows. The origin qi in his body was being consumed at an astonishing rate. Unforgivable. Shock. There was only shock in her heart. Tang Tian stood up, the origin qi in his body surged. The whistling of the wind and thunder caused his fighting intent to soar. Amauri's eyes blazed with flames. Fundamental Tang, Amauri can finally fight alongside you. He appeared in front of Lu Tianwen, his palm was like a blade and with a terrifying might he slashed down. Without any nonsense, Tang Tian's body flashed and disappeared. An even more surging rage surged. Lu Tianwen completely went berserk. Lu Tianwen once again felt that he had been played, completely played. He did not think that Tang Tian's last transformation was forced, he only felt that Tang Tian did it intentionally. You are intentionally using the exact same technique as the last time, to bait me into falling for it. Bang bang bang. The long and loud breathing that resembled that of a prehistoric beast suddenly stopped. The 64 statues all came to life at the same time. They opened their eyes at the same time. The broad guillotine blades that were as tall as humans were raised at the same time, and placed on their shoulders. Using a hand blade to unleash the heavy demonic execution, compared to using a blade, had an additional transformation. Regarding this transformation, Tang Tian had never thought of how to use it, but in a moment of desperation he actually used it. Extermination? Countless of wind and thunder like light auras entered his spear tip. There were no more wind or thunder. The spear tip became transparent like a crystal. The starlight in the sky became smaller and thicker. Lu Tianwen's body was forced back once again. Countless thoughts flashed past his mind. Seems like the opponent has noticed the problem with the blade. But to think of using a hand blade, it is too absurd. No matter how strong the body is, can it compare to a treasure? An indescribable aura pervaded out. The lupus men became even more excited. They clenched their teeth. The veins on their arms that held onto their blades popped out. The fanatical flames almost burned them into ashes. Fight with the king. Tang Tian felt as though he was standing under a sky full of stars. Every star was a mark of transformation. Behind the door, the Null Division members who were prepared to attack all had their veins popping out. They clenched their teeth to resist the terrifying pressure. Zila. As expected of the 39th ranker on the list of powerhouses. He felt that he was being humiliated. The sequence of ghost face masks attacks was exactly the same as the previous time. Wind and thunder crystal thrust. Every step he took would cause the sky to tremble. The pressure that could destroy the heavens and earth, as though MT Tai was pressing down on him. The smile on Tang Tian's face disappeared. Attack. Every single one of Lu Tianwen's nerves was burning with rage. He felt as though he was going crazy and about to explode. A fly-like man was actually toying with him and humiliating him time and time again. The low growl brought about a heart-palpitating tremor, causing the entire space to tremble. All of you will die. The explosion created a circular qi wave that swept out in all directions. Lu Tianwen's hysterical laughter resonated in the sky, and could be heard from far away. Why are their fighting intent so intense? They had seen wind and thunder before, but they had never seen wind and thunder congealed into such a huge ball. Such a ball, upon exploding, could directly destroy a mountain peak. Is this the Null Division? With a roar, Tang Tian once again rushed forward. Tang Tian did not give chase, but instead retreated backwards until he was 10 m away from the stone wall and then stopped. Tang Tian's eyes flashed with a look of madness, his mouth revealing a sinister smile. Tang Tian did not use his blade, but used his hand to unleash a power that was even stronger than the previous time. Threads of starlight grew from the stars. They converged in different directions and 10 of them converged into one. The newly formed light continued to grow and 10 of them converged into one. His spear spun and a strange suction force enveloped the sky. In the blink of the eye, the spinning spear was like a vortex, and all the basket-sized balls of wind and thunder flew towards his spear. The astonishing qi wave exploded beneath Lu Tianwen's feet. The two of them had been accumulating power for a long time, and the collision was far more intense than the previous time. A sickle-shaped qi wave struck the mountain peak, and the 30 m tall mountain peak was sliced apart like tofu, and the top half of the mountain peak slowly slid down. Go and die. Seeing Lu Tianwen flying in the sky, Tang Tian secretly wiped off his cold sweat. It was truly too dangerous. He never thought that the problem that had troubled him for the past few days would actually be realized at such a time. His trembling body suddenly stopped and he suddenly spat out 2 words. His voice that was as gentle as jade was hoarse like smoke at this moment. Lu Tianwen sneered in his heart. Lu Tianwen was completely enraged. He had thought of all sorts of scenarios, but he never thought that the battle would be the same as the previous one. When Lu Tianwen saw Tang Tian, his eyes immediately turned red, his aura suddenly exploded out and countless of green wind and thunder quickly formed around him. The continuous wind and thunder were formed and extinguished, they were like waves, undulating and undulating. A ball of wind and thunder was absorbed by the spear, causing Lu Tianwen's body to be surrounded by a green wind and thunder aura. There was no sound of the wind, but the transparent spear tip gave Tang Tianwen an unprecedented sense of danger. Without thinking, Tang Tian slashed out with a hand blade that was like an illusion, forcefully turning the blade into a palm, and slapped down at Lu Tianwen's feet. Lu Tianwen only felt a surge of blood rushing to his head. Without thinking, the spear in his hand trembled and thrust it out. Is this a martial artist on the list of powerhouses? My spear should not taste good either. No, these 100 balls of wind and thunder are enough to blow the entire Purple Cuckoo City into ruins. And the number of people who can survive will not exceed 100. Zzzzzzzzz. The dense air shield was like a bridge floating in the air. He was like a ghost, sweeping forward like lightning, appearing in front of Lu Tianwen in an instant, his hand blade slashing upwards. The battle was extremely fast, to the point that Mingzhu did not even have time to hide in the castle. She looked at the robust men in a daze. Don't they know what kind of enemy they are facing? Don't they know that the enemy outside only needs one finger to crush them like ants? Everyone knew what Su Yi meant. Ghost Face Mask was dead for sure. No one would be able to survive under the barrage of 100 balls of wind and thunder. Even Roland Su's face was ashen. She knew that she had failed. But strangely, she did not have any regrets. To lose to a powerful martial artist like Lu Tianwen, what regrets would there be? Bang! Behind the door in the corner, Niechio's face revealed a look of pain. His face was pale white, his body was trembling uncontrollably, his back was drenched in sweat. He was using his extremely sharp senses to monitor the entire battlefield. The 2 people fighting were much stronger than him. The berserk and chaotic flow of energy in the battlefield leaked out a bit of cold killing intent, and even the changes in the laws in the battlefield caused him to bear a huge burden. Lu Tianwen was extremely aggressive. The wind and thunder contained in his spear was even denser than the previous time, and the power was even more tyrannical. The previous time Tang Tian was only slightly pushed back, but this time, Tang Tian flew out for a distance of 70 m before stabilizing himself. The extremely dense wind and thunder caused Tang Tian's entire arm to go numb. Tang Tian was not surprised but happy. Instead, he circulated his origin force, and the numbness in his arm disappeared. More importantly, from the clash he could see that using his hand blade to unleash the heavy demonic execution was even more outstanding. His confidence soared. The scene in front of him completely toppled Mingzhu's understanding. Even if it was the Qin family's most direct line of elites, if they knew that there was a martial artist on the list of powerhouses outside, no one would dare to go out, and to be able to escape was already considered loyal. Chapter 736. Under the starry sky behind Tang Tian, a gigantic figure of a heavenly demon appeared. It had 3 heads and 6 arms, releasing a faint gold light. The golden light feathers slowly flew up to the stars in the sky. Amauri felt his body becoming lighter, and upon hearing Niechio's kill, he felt his entire body trembling. Carrying the door-sized broad guillotine blade, he roared and rushed out. This was the only thought in Aomo Li's mind. It was a simple thought that could not be any simpler. Amauri's mouth could not produce any sound. The roar in his heart resounded. How can I forever hide behind fundamental Tang? Is it still not enough? The extreme slow and extreme fast speed formed a strong contrast. The origin force that flew out from Tang Tian's body became lesser and lesser. The light beams grew slower and slower. Tang Tian's consciousness became blurry. He felt that his body was empty and there was nothing left. Fundamental Tang, I have long seen through you. You can't lie to me. Tang Tian was startled. All the distant memories flashed past his eyes like flickering lights. The last 10 light beams, each of them were 30 m thick. They hung down from the sky, growing slower and slower. The heavenly demon statue behind him became dimmer and dimmer. Imo Li, who was covered in blood, suddenly raised his head. His sinister face was covered in blood. He was like a wild beast that was on the brink of desperation. Calling for his comrades, he roared, "Come on, Fundamental Tang." The light beams that hung down continued to grow downwards. In the final state, the 10 light beams converged into one, taking root, transforming into a gigantic tree of light, containing all the variations of the fist technique system. It became blurry bit by bit as though the sound was getting weaker. Amaury's eyes were wide open. He grabbed onto the blade hilt tightly, using all his strength to burn every inch of his flesh and blood. He slowly raised his bent waist. The cracking sounds of his bones sounded out, but he did not seem to hear it. That's it. It was as though he was placed under the stars. He frantically ignited the origin force in his body. The burning origin force floated out from his body. Like petals, they entered the sky full of stars. Although the heavenly demon colossus behind him was no longer releasing golden light, its existence prevented the trees of light that had yet to fully grow from going out of control. Amaury carried the broad guillotine blade, every muscle in his body tensed up, veins popping out. He was like a raging bull resisting the overwhelming pressure. Lu Tianwen's aura enveloped the entire place. He had already entered a berserk state, and his aura automatically locked onto his target. It would have been fine if Amaury hadn't moved, but once he did, it immediately caused a wisp of chi to lock onto him. Fundamental Tang, let us fight side by side. His trembling left leg slowly left the ground. Every inch he raised required all of his strength. His eyes widened and his face contorted. He used all of the strength in his body. Come, Fundamental Tang. The snow-white light aura shone through the door, causing Niechio's figure to become clearer. His body trembled, blood spurted out from his mouth, and as the blood flew, he used all of his strength to shout, "Kill!" Tang Tian shouted to himself in his heart and punched out. Counterattack. That was it. Come on. 100 million into a trillion into 10,000, 10,000 into 1,000, 1,000 into 100, 100 into 10. His mental state had already started to show signs of collapsing, and at that moment he sensed something strange causing his mind to tremble. A pressure that was many times stronger than before rushed towards Amaury. Amaury, who was covered in blood and struggling, appeared in the corner of Tang Tian's consciousness. This is the sacrificial execution. His trembling left leg felt the ground and all of his weight instantly pressed onto the ground. Bang, the stone tiles shattered. Bang. The light ball that was like the sun shot out a dazzling light beam, shooting towards Lu Tianwen, who was like a demon god in the sky. Am I at my limit? Am I going to give up just like that? What kind of joke is this? I am a godlike young lad. Is this the end? Tangtian, come out and fight with me. The multicolored light aura was too dazzling, and instead looked like a white light, causing people to be unable to open their eyes. The strong pressure caused his entire body to sway as though there was a mountain pressing down on him. He frantically used all of the strength in his body, his legs, his hands, his back, all of the strength that he could use. Bang, bang, bang. It was as though a sun had bloomed on Tang Tian's right fist. The dazzling light beam continuously entered Tang Tian's right fist. His hysterical laughter continued to refract in the trembling space, and became like the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves. He suddenly raised his head and sensed something. Sensing the danger, Lu Tianwen regained a trace of clarity in his mind. He roared and thrusted out with the spear in his hand. Outside the stone wall, Tang Tian slowly pulled back his fist. The space around him started to freeze at a speed visible to the naked eye, as though there was a formless frost that was frantically expanding. Come on. So, no matter what, there is no reason to give up, there is no reason to retreat, there is no reason to be a coward. They are what you cherish, what you want to protect, what you want to accompany. Rush forward, you should be at the front. The fist was pulled back extremely slowly like a tortoise crawling. Compared to the slow fist, the spread of the frozen space was extremely fast, and the law threads that entered Tang Tian's right fist were also extremely fast. Even if you die, you should be at the front. The thunderous footsteps, along with Amaury's beast-like roar, smashed heavily into Tang Tian's consciousness, causing his blurry consciousness to suddenly sober up. His twisted and sinister face was covered in blood. It was extremely terrifying. At the corner of Tang Tian's mouth, a faint smile surfaced like the warm sunlight. Tang Tian knew that he had reached his limit. This is Master preparing to counterattack. Inside the dazzling white light, 64 black figures that resembled iron towers raised their heavy broad guillotine blades high up in their hands. Suddenly, footsteps sounded out, and when it landed in Tang Tian's ears, it was like thunder. Every muscle on his face was trembling, perspiration flowed out continuously. Suddenly, dark red blood seeped out from his skin. The red blood mixed with his perspiration and flowed down his face. He screamed and roared in his mind. "Come on, fundamental Tang!" A burly man covered in blood led 63 iron tower-like men drenched in sweat. Their eyes were wide open in anger and they roared like thunder. Their muscles bulged and like 64 ferocious beasts, they crazily charged towards the gate. The pressure on his body increased exponentially, blood seeped out from every part of his skin. He looked like a man made of blood. But a Maori felt an indescribable joy. Every inch of his flesh and blood was burning. The berserk fighting intent was about to devour him. The light beams that stopped growing started to grow again. He is the martial artist that I admire the most, the one with the strongest martial artist heart, the one who is determined to create his own martial Tao, the one with the perfect fundamental Tang Tian, a godlike man. Every step was like a heavy drum so dense that it caused people to tremble. A Maori. It was a good feeling to be trusted by everyone, to have high hopes placed on him. It was a good feeling to be together with everyone. It was a good feeling to fight side by side with everyone. Threads of power surged out from the originally withered flesh and blood. Following the transformation of the sacrificial execution, it flowed into Tang Tian's body. Lu Tianwen, who was enveloped in an intense green light, pressed forward step by step. Every step he took caused the ground to shake and the space to tremble. Everything in his field of vision was trembling intensely. One after another, cracks snaked along the body of the mountain paw, the sturdy rocks crumbled and pieces of crushed rocks floated into the sky. The plants and vines silently crumbled into pieces. Niechio was the first to sense it. Under the tyrannical wind and thunder might that could destroy cities, a not considered strong but extremely stable aura was slowly growing. The entire space was trembling, but the space was strangely stable and it was growing frantically. It was like a soundless whisper floating past his mind. He could not differentiate if it was his whisper, or the whisper of the stars in the sky. He felt as though his body had lost all of its strength and slowly floated up. Everything was futile, there was no meaning. He did not dare believe it and was startled. His senses were extremely sharp, so he knew how terrifying Lu Tianwen's attack was, to the point that the entire space around him would collapse. All of the bones in a Maori's body were cracking. His body was trembling intensely. He clenched his teeth tightly, the muscles on his cheeks were trembling, his eyes were bloodshot. Niechio was at a loss. He had switched from the Leo constellation to the Ursa Major constellation. He was filled with ambition, but he never thought that before he had achieved anything he would die. Is this fate? 30M, 15M. We fight side by side. Niechio could not think of any counterattack that could cause despair in the face of such an attack. Struggle before death? Kill. The people behind him roared in unison and ran with all their might. Come, fundamental Tang. A Maori. Tang Tian did not have any sorrow in his heart, but instead was extremely calm. That was his conviction, his determination, and he had never seen it so clearly before. Tang Tian's eyes lost their focus and became emotionless. Crack, crack, crack. Come, fundamental Tang. A warm feeling surfaced in his heart. Tang Tian opened his eyes, his vision was blood red. The blood mist that shot out had caused the frozen space around him to be dyed red like glass, bringing with it a bewitching beauty. The light aura on his right fist was like a red glass lampshade. To die in battle for the people that I cherish, the people that I want to protect and accompany, is a form of happiness. Huh. All the bones in his body were cracking, all the muscles in his body were trembling, and all the blood in his body was burning. Chi, a blood mist shot out from Tang Tian's body, but Tang Tian did not feel anything. His fist was not affected at all. It was extremely slow and extremely stable. Niechio was bitterly enduring Lu Tianwen's terrifying pressure. His cultivation was crippled, and he was only left with his extraordinary perception. His extraordinary perception made him extremely sharp, and also made him endure an even greater pressure than others. In that moment, perspiration flowed out like a fountain, causing a Maori's entire body to be drenched. Without hesitation he gave it his all and slashed with all his might. The dazzling light aura illuminated the entire place, causing it to be as bright as snow. For some reason the heavy demonic executions, sacrificial execution, flashed past Tang Tian's mind. All of the cryptic sentences were lit up like candlelight, and an indescribable enlightenment flowed into Tang Tian's mind. It was not bitter, it was not ruthless, it was not a struggle, it was determination, conviction, and happiness. His footsteps passed through the door and onto the stone wall. One after another, figures soared into the sky. In the sky, the red light aura and the green light aura clashed, creating a clear distinction. Chapter 737. The two young ladies let out a "oh" sound as though they understood, before turning around and flying towards the Echo Hill Castle. They had won. At this moment Han Bingning was like a sharp and icy cold sword. Her entire person revealed her ability and emitted a piercingly cold sword intent, completely different from her previous restrained self. After being injured last time, she had been in seclusion. Just now, when everyone was fighting with their lives on the line, her heart was filled with unwillingness and regret. At this time she was actually unable to fight shoulder to shoulder with everyone. She didn't expect to come out of seclusion early. They actually killed Lu Tianwen? Victor's voice sounded as though he was talking in his sleep. Mingzhu was stunned. It was not only her, the entire Echo Hill Castle had sunk into a strange silence. Sometimes, some things had to be retreated to the starting point, only then would one be able to see their original intentions at that time. His face was covered in blood, but his eyes didn't have the slightest bit of violence or madness. There was only the seriousness and determination of a simple and honest youth. Dang. Come on, Amauri. Everyone quietened down. They were shocked by Victor's suggestion. Benson did not explain further and said, "Go. They've just finished a great battle and are short of manpower. You guys should go earlier and you'll be able to help." A breath was stuck in his chest, but he didn't have the chance to breathe. The spear in his hand did not transmit any slashing force. Although it was just one slash, the Null Division members' physical strength were all exhausted. They sat on the ground and gasped for breath. What's going on? Benson stood up. "Count me in." The two young ladies were still in a daze and did not understand, but they had been raised by Benson since they were young, and listened to everything he said. The blood on his face gradually turned pale. Normally he wouldn't even care about a slash of this level. But at this time he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. The continuous slashes didn't give him the slightest chance to catch his breath. His arms were sore and limp. The faces of the twin sisters were pale and they seemed to be in a trance. Hiss, her figure flashed, and in the next moment she appeared beside Amauri and pulled Amauri back. He retreated step by step towards the door, each step leaving a bright red footprint. Everyone looked at each other and burst out laughing. Su Ye's mutter struck everyone's hearts. "I did it. I did it. Did I do it just now?" His face contorted and his body trembled, but he gritted his teeth and held on. She also secretly made up her mind that if she could help Victor, she would help him as well. She sighed in her heart. She also understood that the reason why Victor looked for her was to lay a foreshadowing in advance. He hoped that Ghost Face Mask would not make things difficult for the Teopiot family for the sake of his advice. Looking at everyone's hesitant expression, Victor's face flushed red and he said agitatedly, "Don't tell me you still want to leave some leeway? Will Qingjin give us any leeway? Well, if he knows that you gave the prisoners to Ghost Face Mask and that Benson gave the steel guards to Han Bingning, he will definitely not let us off. We don't stand a chance against the experts on the list of combat power. Only Ghost Face Mask can deal with Qingjin." She knew that she had already lost this time. Su Yi revealed a bitter smile. "This time we have boarded the pirate ship." The two ladies looked at Benson blankly. Su was the calmest. She had lost her favor the earliest, and the risk she had to take was the greatest. Naturally, it wasn't something that these bets could compare to. She glanced at Victor, who had a bitter look on his face. "So you need not worry, as long as I send the Null Division prisoners over, it will naturally be a favor." The broad guillotine blade hung by his side. Warm, sticky blood slid down the blade and dripped onto the ground. He had already lost count of how many times he had been slashed. He had never given up. "Come on, Amauri." At this time, if anyone still did not know that Ghost Face Mask was an extremely thick thigh, then they would truly be stupid. Su was in a daze. The entire process was like a dream. 65 Null Division prisoners was definitely not a small number, and such a huge gamble to the Roland family, it would be difficult for them to make a second time. If it wasn't for the fact that she had been the head of the family for many years and had great prestige, she wouldn't even have the power to make such a decision. Tang Tian, who was floating in the air, finally relaxed. His vision turned black and he fell down. Ben Sin had given the two ladies to Han Bingning. It was extremely ingenious. Han Bingning was previously in trouble in the Mu-Er residence, and that was the reason. Furthermore, no one knew of the relationship between Han Bingning and Ghost Face Mask, and if they gave the ladies to Ghost Face Mask, it would anger Han Bingning and that would be bad. If they were given to Han Bingning, there would be no hidden danger. Furthermore, even if Han Bingning was Ghost Face Mask's subordinate, he would be an important subordinate. If they could not hug Ghost Face Mask's thigh, hugging Han Bingning's thigh would be a good choice. Lu Tianwen was in a daze. He still did not understand how his technique was broken. The entire law surface's power was projected onto his body, unless the opponent had gained enlightenment on a law domain. If not, they would definitely not be able to break his technique. Clang 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 clang. Victor's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. Once we choose Ghost Face Mask, we will fall out with Qin Zhen. Do you think Qin Zhen will let us go? Then why don't we go all the way? While Qin Zhen is not around, we will go to the Qin family and save the Null Division prisoners. With the Null Division, Ghost Face Mask will become even stronger, and our contributions will be even greater. Even if Qin Zhen returns, what can he do? He returned to the place he had just started from. He passed through the door, crossed the light, stepped onto the stone wall, and with all his strength he threw himself out. He suddenly realized that the trembling of the space around him had disappeared, the violent wind and thunder had disappeared, the power projected by the law surface had actually disappeared without a trace. Cold sweat trickled down his face. This is... But who would have thought that not only was Ghost Face Mask not killed by Lu Tianwen, he even killed Lu Tianwen. He originally thought that he had lost everything, but he suddenly struck the jackpot. Such a huge rise and fall. Even for Roland Su, who had profound martial arts, he felt as though he was in a dream. He laid paralyzed on the ground without even the strength to move a finger. Benson suddenly spoke out, "Xiao Yu, Xiao Yi." No. Benson was the first to recover from the shock. He did not have anything in his heart, and only wanted to bring the two young ladies to see the world, but he never expected to witness such a shocking battle. Seeing Lu Tianwen getting bigger and bigger, a Maori roared in his heart. All of the muscles in his body exploded out. He dragged the broad guillotine blade by his side and fiercely slashed upwards. Clang clang clang. A terrifying large blade slashed onto the Thunder Wind spear. The astonishing power caused Lu Tianwen's palm to heat up. He almost lost control of the spear and it flew out of his hands. How can Ghost Face Mask still have strength left? This blade was obviously the technique that Ghost Face Mask had used previously. When the light aura blossomed from the spear tip, Lu Tianwen's vision turned white, but his consciousness immediately woke up. Impossible. The group of people who were spectating from afar heard the cheers from Echo Hill Castle. All of their expressions were filled with shock and disbelief. Impossible. How could Lu Tianwen's technique be broken? Su Yi looked as though he was about to go crazy. Out of the few of them, he was the strongest, and thus the impact he received was the strongest. The rest of them were not any better than him. They definitely think that it's fake news. Ben Sin, who was in a good mood, said something cold and humorous. A Maori who was the first to slash borrowed the rebound force from the spear body and landed back at the door. Seeing his brothers pouncing towards Lu Tianwen like a tide, he laughed. His face that was covered in blood revealed his eerie white teeth. Executing the heavens. The continuous slashes brought forth the sound of the wind, slashing onto his spear like a torrential storm, causing his body to tremble like a sieve. His arm was so sore that it was almost numb. He didn't dare to move an inch. Right now he was relying on this breath to force himself to hold on. If he made the slightest movement, this breath would leak and that would be the end of him. Lu Tianwen's eyes were filled with fear. A dark red line of blood flowed along the center of his body, and split his body into two. Qi blood spurted out. The fear in Lu Tianwen's eyes became denser and denser. It could be said that Ben Sin had used the trump card in his hands to its limit, causing the others to look at him in a different light. Before they could react, the piercing white light and the sound of the wind assaulted their faces. All of you do not need to return to the residence. Benson said, Miss Han has suffered in Mu-Er for so many days, and Miss has always felt guilty. All of you will go to Echo Hill Castle now, and follow Miss Han from now on and be her assistants. Serve Miss Han like how you serve Mississippi. Roland Su also stood up. I will go as well. Lu Tianwen's technique was the strongest technique of his grade. How could it be broken? The Teopiot family is truly foolish. Victor suddenly said, what do you guys think if we were to ambush the Qin family at this time? Lu Tianwen, who was bitterly holding on in his blurry vision, a bright red figure suddenly rushed in front of him like an enraged bull. Su Yi suddenly laughed. I am truly curious when this news spreads back to the Lu family to Qin Zhen's ears, what kind of expression will they have? Once Ghostface Mask gathered the Null Division, he would definitely sweep through the Sin domain, and no one would be able to stop him. He dragged the broad guillotine blade and started to run, facing the stone castle's door, facing the sky outside, facing the light of battle, facing the young man's dreams and beliefs. He ran with all his might, listening to the wind whistling past his ears, smelling the smell of blood, the wounds all over his body burning. Every step he took was a roar to the world. Lu Tianwen's berserk performance made her understand that the situation was hopeless, and even she did not believe that Ghostface Mask could hold on. He stared blankly at the sky, his face was filled with disbelief. The others regained their senses. They did not expect for Ben Sin to be the first to attack, and scolded in their hearts, Black Devil looks like a boorish man, but he's smarter than a ghost. He brought his juniors to broaden their horizons, and now he gave the steel guards to Han Bingning. It was truly a powerful move. Amauri was unable to restrain himself and flew out. The blade had exhausted his last bit of strength. He rolled along the hill like a rock and only stopped when he was blocked by a piece of rock. A sword concept soared into the sky, and in the next moment an ice mountain-like figure appeared like lightning, grabbing onto Tang Tian. It was actually Han Bingning, who had just come out of closed-door training. Although Ghostface Mask had ganged up on Lu Tianwen, but with his strength, even if he was not as strong as Lu Tianwen, the difference was extremely small. Furthermore, the fighting strength that the Null Division prisoners had displayed caused everyone to be shocked. After a long while, the sky shook with cheers. Almost subconsciously, Lu Tianwen placed the Thunderwind spear in front of his chest.